All right. Well, greetings. Today, I'm sitting here with Kevin, and we're going to discuss and do a listen and review to the Smashing Pumpkins' third studio album, Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness. I want to start off just kind of giving an overview, kind of talking about sort of specs on the album, and then segue into actually listening to the album with headphones and play it from a CD player, and do a commentary to the listening experience. And through that, I've created notes for the beginning part with sort of the specs, like release dates and packaging information, and just general information about the album and its time and place. And then also, when the listening happens, both of us have our own notes that we've created to go over and discuss while the song is playing. Initially, it was going to be sort of a rundown without listening to it, but then Kevin had this idea of incorporating listening to it, which brings a lot more time to the overall production here, but gives us a lot more of a natural, I think, reaction
space.
to.
It gives us space. It gives us freedom. It gives us a little bit of time to digest what is a just thick hunk of art, not even just audio. There's a lot to this. It is a truly four-dimensional piece in terms of there's a visual element, there's an audio element, there's still images, there's moving images, there's even down to fonts and song titles. It's a total package, and I feel like it's worthy of the amount of time to at least listen to the album, to discuss the album in that same amount of time, actually. So we're going to celebrate the physical format with Brad's original CD here through his father's CD player.
Yeah, the CD was a Christmas gift in 1996 for me. It was given to me by my dad's girlfriend at the time, and back in 1996, this album was over $20.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was in an era where I was still buying albums on cassette tapes, which were $4 or $5, sometimes cheaper than buying the CD. So I had a couple CDs, but most of my collection was cassette tapes. So I wanted this album, but did not make that investment into the cassette tape. And my being known for liking it, my dad's girlfriend bought this album for me, which I thought was a real baller move, because I was like, this isn't a cheap CD.
No, that's trying to score some points with you for sure.
Yeah, perhaps. And also at the time, she bought it at the Westminster Town Mall. Maybe it was called Cranberry, I guess, still at that point in '96, the Cranberry Mall. And she bought it at the Wall, so it has the Wall Lifetime Music Guarantee sticker on it. So that sort of talking about dates and everything, the significance of this album, this is being recorded in October of 2024, and this album was released in October of 1995, so we're actually in the 29th year, but I'm just rounding it up to celebrate it more of a 30-year anniversary. And even though when I was listening to it, getting it in the Christmas of '96, it was a lot more 97 for me when I was listening to it.
And I believe that because of the way that singles were released, there was awards and stuff still being awarded as long as 1998 because of how long the single cycle worked for it.
Yeah.
So it did occupy
years.
It is a 30-year anniversary, but it also is a chunk of time that we're celebrating here because of the way that just the record industry worked at the time, the way that you could supplement records with outside things, the way that you could get 5 singles and then, your promotional single, unofficial single, which was much more a 90s thing. The unofficial single, and there's at least 1 or 2 of them on here, kind of.
Yeah, I believe they had a couple. One of them, I believe, was released as an EP. Yeah, I guess that will come about when we get to the particular song notes. But where songs could come out where they gave you a good chunk of some other stuff as well as the single, and it was a lot more meat and potatoes that they could throw out while the album was still like active.
Yeah.
I guess sort of tackling some general notes. Yeah, the album was released in October of '95 on Virgin Records. It was their 3rd album. Gish was their first one, then Siamese Dream.
You know what I didn't look into is, and I probably should have looked into this, is this their first on Virgin, or were they on Virgin the whole time? Because when I read that, when I was looking through this, that was a detail that I'm like, oh, I can see the logo on the CD. Like, I can picture it now on the CD now that I know that it was Virgin. But that was like a detail that I think escaped me as a kid. And now I'm like thinking back, I'm like, wait, did they make the other 2 for Virgin?
Well, I'm not certain about Gish, but I'm pretty certain that Butch Vig was producer with Siamese Dream.
Yeah.
I don't know if he
and
was...
Gish.
And Gish.
And Gish.
Well, I don't know if he would have been more likely to have been his work and working with Virgin,
Yeah,
or if they signed to Virgin, and that would kind of made also changes that led to using different producers for Mellon Collie in the Infinite Sadness.
I also think that the Virgin Records of it all kind of makes them stand out. They always kind of stood out anyway to me, the Smashing Pumpkins. They were always like the band that was happy to be an alternative rock band. They liked the word alternative rock. Billy Corgan liked to throw around alternative rock as a term. So, something literally just happened. Damn, where was I going with that?
You got some Milano cookies.
I know, I got some Milano cookies right there. Where was I going with that thought?
Alternative, they refer to themselves like alternative, and being on Virgin.
Oh, that's right. The idea that they sort of stood alone in a lot of their decision making, that they got lumped up in a bigger thing. They got lumped up in like grunge and stuff like this. They fall under a lot of different umbrellas, and but they always kind of like sort of tried to do their own singular thing. Mostly, and the Virgin Records of it all also is like, oh, that's not a label that I associate with a lot of 90s rock music or alternative. So it's also like, oh, here they are doing their own thing again. None of the other alternative bands were doing a double album. Here they are doing their own thing. None of them were doing sort of like artwork on this level.
Yeah.
The box sets and stuff like that. They kind of liked the excess of that type of stuff, the packaging and stuff like that, in an era where maybe it was too cool to care about some of that stuff. Billy Corgan kind of leaned into it. So like the Virgin Records of it all, I think, is just one more thing that made them different than the other bands of their time, even though, again, they sort of get lumped in with all of them. 5 singles, right?
Yeah, Bullet with Butterfly Wings was the first one. Then 1979 was the second one. Zero was the third. Tonight was the fourth. And then the final single was 33.
33.
Apparently the album debuted at #1 on the Billboard within the first week of sales being 246,500 units. Some numbers, I don't feel like you'd see that kind of action these days.
No.
I feel like, too, like 95 probably was maybe like the peak, too, for the physical format in like record industry, like the history of the recording industry and in popular music. I feel like the 90s, mid-90s this is like guessing, but it just seems like that would have been when CD sales were like the best.
Yeah.
You know, because by the time you hit 2000, hey, iPod
Yeah.
and things. Napster was late 90s. So like, you know, as that kind of transitioned into people buying less of the physical format and getting away from that, it almost seems like these numbers probably represent to like an era where it's hard to have those numbers these days, especially for an alternative rock band.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a perfect storm that this album almost could have only have occurred when it did, in the sense of like an alternative rock band couldn't have sold as many CDs before or after of a double album, again, of a expensive, like
Over $20.
except for like 1995. Like anything later than that, it was being stolen on the internet, and anything earlier than that was asking a lot from an alternative rock audience.
Like it seems like it would have been a lot more of a niche market or demographic.
I mean, to be fair, if it would have been doable, Billy Corgan would have done it earlier. Like Siamese Dream, he had enough material for a double album then.
Yeah.
So if he could have gotten away with it earlier, he probably would have tried earlier. But maybe just the time and place wasn't right for it then.
Maybe that record label wouldn't let
Yeah, didn't. They weren't established yet. But there is, expanded versions of that album that sort of proves that, like, yeah, Siamese Dream is this close to being a two-part or a two-disc.
Yeah, some
epic as well.
Some of the tracks on Mellon Collie have origins from the Siamese Dream era, where it was like recorded during that time, or at least demoed in that time, where there was a lot of action happening. Even before Mellon Collie was like, I guess, like a formed concept to be writing for. Just writing a lot. Mm-hmm. So the packaging, I'm familiar with it with the 2-disc CD. It also came out on cassette tape, two tape. It also came out on vinyl, but it was 3 LPs in one package. And there was only 5,000 of those vinyl copies made. And the vinyl version of the album has a different track listing altogether than the CD or the cassette tape, which is pretty interesting because, for me, the way the tracks flow from one to the other is very much a part of the feeling of like why one song feels like this comes before the next.
The sequencing in this album is very important, and to me, this version of it being the only version of it that I'm actually aware of, I can't hear it any other way.
When looking at the track listing for the vinyl, there were a couple of things too where it seems like there was still a lot of importance with the opening and closing tracks, and I believe 33 was also the third track for all versions. That stayed consistent. But then some of the other
order up on the number 3.
Yeah, like you couldn't have made that track 7 without that maybe.
Got it.
Not feeling right, I guess.
Got it. It's a shame there was no track 0 for this guy then.
Yeah.
Since he's so into that.
There was a box set released in November of '96 called The Aeroplane Flies High, and that had all the promotional singles and a lot of stuff that didn't make the cut. So it kind of had a lot.
Did you own that?
No, I did not.
I did not either.
I looked it up and I couldn't even say I recognized it, but it just seemed like, I probably saw that on a shelf at Record and Tape Traders.
Yep.
And it was just like a price point of which I was like, I don't know why I would buy that, or, I may not even recognized it, but the packaging has like a black sort of spiral look to it.
Yeah.
It's like in almost like a 45 singles box. It looks like they can be had on eBay fairly affordable, unlike the original vinyl pressing, which is like...
real money.
Yeah, that's almost like a mortgage payment right there. And then the album was also remastered and re-released in 2012. Mm-hmm. And in that, there was also a vinyl version, but I believe in that version, they took it back to the original... or at least they matched the track listing as the original CD and the tape.
Oh.
So they kind of like redid that. I think I think the vinyl version though for the re-release was like four LPs.
Yeah, I believe 4.
So a lot
And it
more
had the
wax.
expanded artwork.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like the zoom out artwork where you get to see not only just the little star girl, but all the other things created. The packaging is I've watched a couple of unboxing videos, and it's such an impressive piece of media. Love to get my hands on one of those things, but I follow a couple like record stores and things on social media, and I felt like when they were coming out, it was like worthy of a post on social media, like come get these while you can type thing. Where I'm like, oh, they're in like that kind of demand. Never mind.
Yeah, I imagine that also approaching the 30th anniversary, that those are only going to get even more like have a higher value on eBay used and just move quicker when available in used markets. So yeah, the aesthetics of the album. So the artwork and visual design was conceived by a Wisconsin-based illustrator by the name of John Craig. The woman on the front of the album cover is actually 2 different images pre-existing that were collaged together. So the face of the woman was taken from a painting called The Souvenir, in parentheses, Fidelity, by Jean-Baptiste Greuze. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And then the rest of the body was taken from Raphael's, the Ninja Turtle, his portrait of Saint Catherine of Alexandria. So it's kind of neat to think that that's actually a collage. And then the rest of the sort of details and sort of things, little scribings in the lyric booklet on the inside, also from this same illustrator, John Craig. Also with it being a 2-disc album, the CDs have, it's sort of broken into a theme where disc 1 and disc 2 aren't just labeled that. They have names where the first one is called Dawn to Dusk, and then the second disc is called Twilight to Starlight. And the 3 LP version, because imagine like how much work it was putting all this together. So
does the third have a different name?
Yeah, so the 3 LPs, one was Dawn and Tea Time for A-B side, and then the second LP was Dusk and Twilight, and then the third LP was Midnight and Starlight. I mean, imagine how much of a pain in the ass it would have been to like work with this band and like have all these like, demands for, the artwork, the aesthetics, the packaging. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to this probably being the peak when bands had that much ability to have that all go into it and it not be a total loss for the record label. So they would be willing to do that as an investment and believe that we're going to make our money back on this band.
Sure.
It's really special because it just seems so rare these days to get any kind of thought and meticulousness in the details of an album and its physical production.
Learning this now, I like it has me questioning what's Billy Corgan's preferred version then, because everything is very purposeful with him, right? So like the 2 CD set having the 2 names, and then the 3 LP set having 3 different names, and then being like a different version. Would you say like Dawn to Tea Time? Which is like completely like that's new to the story.
Yeah, Dawn and Tea Time.
That's new to the entire story to me. Like the words tea time. Like I'm not aware of that as a CD owner.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
That's not on the CD at all anywhere.
He does own a tea room, Billy Corgan in real life,
and he also owns NWA.
Yeah, well that's the wrestling. Yes, that's a part of his story that I think is important to the overall thing. And what I was talking about kind of earlier when I was touching on them being slightly different is the fact that Billy Corgan is slightly different in that he is not, unlike his peers, he is not a punk rock guy where a lot of the grunge alternative guys were. He is an unabashed classic rock fan, right? And then new wave and alternative. He sort of wears these things on his sleeve a little more. He's kind of proud of that stuff. He's proud of sort of guitar rock shreddery. And again, in a time where that was less cool sometimes. He likes sports. He likes the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, Chicago stuff.
Yeah, which is, again, sports and alternative rock don't exist in many of the same, arenas. Wrestling, you could zoom out, and that, I'm sure, tells a bigger picture of Billy Corgan and the sort of like farce of it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that he likes characters, he likes people, he became a character here.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of him becoming a character, and if you know that he likes pro wrestling and sports on that level, then him putting on his little Zero uniform and shaving his head is like, okay. When he's got 2 albums of personal material and extremely personal material behind him, he's exercised some demons perhaps with Disarm and Today and these songs on these, which are these big, heavy things, right? When we get here, we get to, tonight is like, I like Cheap Trick, Heaven Tonight, and Tonight It's You. Like Cheap Trick loves to use the word tonight because it paints a picture. I'm gonna do that, right? We're moving into like characters and different points of view. We'll talk more about that as each song goes on. But I feel like it's important to preface anything Mellon Collie in the Infinite Sadness. You gotta sort of talk about like who Billy Corgan is, what his kinks are in a sense, like what makes him tick, what is his background, because again, he is a singular he's one of one in alternative rock, which is wild because like that then became his relationship with the media and his peers, and rock and roll became like this weird thing because he wanted to belong, but he kind of didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and this proves it.
It's quite the character.
He is a character. He's a character. He's like coming from, you're not gonna get Kurt Cobain to admit that he likes The Wall. Like that he likes like this like giant excessive piece of rock and roll like that. But Billy Corgan will, and then he'll try to take it to the next level. And of course, Billy Corgan's favorite Beatles album is like the White Album. He like is inspired by the White Album because he likes that.
Yeah, he's quite the Beatles fan.
Yeah.
I feel like this being a double album that as a connection to like Pink Floyd, The Wall, and the Beatles with the White Album, how those are mainstream, those are on the radio and a huge influence to the masses. And I could see too how some deep pretty intense musicians would be like that's like mainstream stuff, I'm into this underground stuff, and to kind of refer to those things and sort of lean into those kinds of influences is interesting and unique to pretty mainstream 90s rock outfits. Speaking of characters, I did have in here in the notes that the logo, that the font is something that I've seen from time to time. And I remember discussing with you prior, and you brought up like Lansbury, that the type would be type of font would be Lansbury. Seems like there's actually a few like versions of it in the digital sort of typeface landscape, but
there's like a Columbia.
So Columbian is what I found, and I mean, it seemed like it was where the origins of the font comes from, and it says it was patented in October. Something about a theme of October with a lot of this stuff. In 1891, so you're going, okay, well, if that's that just sounds like it's so old that was like, and it looks like it would be made from that era. And then it's interesting because how that aesthetic of the look of that font works with the aesthetics of this album, looking like Victorian.
It's one of the perfect pieces.
So I had like a huge section here about concept, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to just like move past it, but it's a lot in here where I feel like we've gone into a lot of aspects of the concept. But yeah, I feel like I read somewhere where he kind of rejected the term concept album in regards to this, but did sort of describe it with these character traits like the day and night aspect. Which, going back to something you said earlier, his preferred version, I'm feeling like it probably would have been the sort of the 2-element
the CD
production,
sure,
versus the vinyl, which probably was just had to do that because of the time restraints to, I guess, the quality of the groove and length of time per side, the sort of reflection on what the album meant to Corgan and the intention of that seemed to just generally kind of talk about like this writing about his his issues, almost like sort of like coming to terms with his youth and like the past, and sort of like making this a catalyst to move on from that. And also in later sort of song analysis, it seemed too a lot of the songs had to do with his marriage that he had gotten into not that long before the album, and then it was deteriorating during the album, and it was inevitably leading to a divorce.
That's new to me. I never heard this album as a divorce record before until recently, until like researching and listening to it here, and now getting from song to song and getting into some of the lyric stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. I always saw this record, interestingly, and maybe I'm still right about this, I always sort of thought of this record as a positive for like love. It feels like there's like love songs and there's this like whimsy and this sort of longing on the record that doesn't feel like, it feels like the rage on the album isn't aimed at like a partner. It feels like the tracks that are angry are like at like the music business or his place in it and maybe his parents or whatever, and then it feels like the stuff that's like relationship based is all. To me, it felt nice.
Yeah,
it felt like, oh, there's like
whimsical.
The nice songs on here are as nice as they get. Matter of fact, some of the nicest songs on here push me to the level of like, I don't even know that I like going this nice here. The song Beautiful.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Like it'll go to a point where I'm like, that's. Dial it back, man. Dial it back. So, like, hearing that there was like divorce stuff, or just a marriage falling apart. Also, his next girlfriend being such a part of some of the visual stuff tied to this. There is some overlap there. I don't know if there's overlap, but there was a new girlfriend who's directing music videos.
Oh.
Because she directed the Zero video. So like, there's also like the beginning of a new relationship also. So the ending of one and the beginning of another, where she was also an artist and contributing to this is also an extra wrinkle that is interesting. You know what I think? I think because of the length of this thing, I think we could be talking about content and stuff while it plays. We got 4 minutes of opening track where there's no words. You want to start to listen now?
Yeah, I mean, really, I don't have very many. The rest of it is just accolades, which is kind of boring.
Yeah, and stuff that we can talk, and you can talk to accolades as some of the, there's a 8 or 7 minute long song in here, so we can talk some of the accolades. We can talk some of the, the concepts and stuff. We'll talk about as we go.
Well, really, for these intro notes, it's pretty well over with. Other than recording, I just had, at points. Pro Tools was used for this, which is kind of crazy. Mid-90s Pro Tools.
Early Pro Tools. Also recorded live, a lot of it.
Yeah, there was a couple tracks.
A lot of just challenging them to record. We're talking about a guy that is kind of in Billy Corgan. We're talking about a guy that might be a bit of a perfectionist or a bit of maybe a control freak. So by having producers challenge him to like, hey, why don't we record live as a band? And, I think sometimes adds to some of the jamminess of this record, because there are songs that you can feel are built out of jams.
Yeah.
Some of the longer meandering songs are definitely like, oh, this is 4 people in a room, and I can really hear it and feel it.
Probably might want to try to take and direct your headphone cord like behind your shoulder or around that side so it won't
doesn't-
hit your little lav mic.
Smart. Smart.
Yeah, when the recording sessions concluded, the band had 57 potential songs, and they had to boil that down to 31. So that's kind of crazy. You have to trim out that much fat, and then to think that's probably why there was the 96, the sort of extra stuff that came out on those on that special box set. All the guitars on the album were tuned down half a step, and then trying to think. That's more of a song detail, so I'll hold out for that. Other than that, there was the producers for the album was Flood. Oh shoot, I don't even think I have that in here.
What?
It was Flood
And Alan Moulder.
yes, that was the other one, and then Billy Corgan.
Yeah, Billy Corgan himself. Again, has to be.
And that was different because on the previous album or albums it was Butch Vig.
Butch.
So they
So they went with a very British Flood.
yeah.
As British as they come.
Yeah.
And Alan Moulder, he was like an engineer as well. Those 2 guys had like worked together and separate on My Bloody Valentine and Jesus and Mary Chain. What else do I have on here? Flood had just done U2. Actually, he had just finished The Downward Spiral.
Quite a what do they call that? Quite a CV there.
Which becomes obvious on some of the songs to me. There's songs on here that I'm like, oh, here's the flood of it all. Here's the, some of the electronica tinge stuff. It's like, oh, they had 2 producers, and one of the producers liked sort of electronica tinge stuff. One had just worked with 9 Inch Nails during the era where anything that was kind of hard rock was about to sort of get industrialized slightly. And Smashing Pumpkins are heading that. They're almost spearheading it.
Yeah.
They're one of the few that doesn't just like start there. They're one of the few that sort of like gravitates there. They're not, 9 Inch Nails or White Zombie or like some of these bands that sort of started in kind of a ministry or something where they kind of started industrial goth or whatever. Smashing Pumpkins sort of like ended up there.
Yeah.
Through this record.
So it's 2 discs. The first disc is it's already loaded in the CD player, but just to confirm, it has a pink color scheme, and it looks like almost like a what do they call it, cherub, right?
Yeah, like a cherub with like this saw blade.
Yeah, which is an awesome aesthetic to a CD, the circular detail. But this one's called Dawn to Dusk. And the face is smiling on this one.
And in pink.
In pink. All right, so I'll hit start. Starts on track 1. All right, so this song's called Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness, so title track.
Title track, yep.
This one for me has a connection to the 90s with a memory where I was talking to my aunt in the back seat of like a vehicle, and she told me we both had like common grounds with certain music interests, and this the Smashing Pumpkins was one of those interests that we both shared, and she said that she had used this song in her wedding. And I didn't go to that wedding, but
she'd used this song.
Yeah, and I feel like I may have actually saw a video of it, like a VHS probably of like the the wedding or whatever, and it confirmed that. Or I've also kind of thought too, like maybe I just like fabricated that memory, like I just can picture the wedding through some pictures I saw, but and sometimes I get confused if it was this song or if it was 33. But this one makes more sense because it's instrumental and has like more of it feels like you could hear this in a wedding.
Yeah, I love it as a big, like it's an invitation. It feels like every time I listen to this record, I must listen to this. This is like required listening because it is like the perfect like
buffer.
Yeah. It reminds me of like an overture in like a musical. The beginning of East of Eden has like 4 or 5 minute just musical piece, right? Just sort of setting you up for what's coming. So like to me, this track, Mellon Collie, the self-titled track, the titular track, has to be listened to back with Tonight Tonight. They are like, to me, is like a one, the string section, the way that it all flows or whatever, they must be listened to as one piece to me. It's like hard to hear Tonight Tonight sort of like disembodied from the record almost. Because it's such a part of this, it's such a part of this opening to me. The momentum, both discs have this momentum at the beginning of them. They're kind of like similar.
Yeah.
In terms of like, if you kind of take off they're almost like a mirror image because of the way that this song is then reprised at the very end of the record.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like
actually
a mirror.
makes 2 different appearances.
Yeah, it's a mirror image almost, right?
Yeah, it's a theme in a sense for the whole album. And I feel like you couldn't have listened to that intro song without, like, if you just heard the intro song, you'd be like, I need to hear that the beginning of Tonight Tonight to, like, it would feel like you couldn't just not listen to those 2 where Tonight Tonight follows, where if you just listen to the first one, you're like, I need this part now.
That one would be just as, maybe even weirder if it was disembodied. If it was just on like a playlist or something where somebody just played that and you heard the way that ended and it didn't. I can't imagine that.
Kind of a weird song, that intro song for a wedding, because it is kind of like a bummer in a way, like melancholy, infinite sadness, like wedding music.
Yeah. There's a certain sadness to so many wedding songs, though.
Yeah, so Tonight Tonight.
We're into Tonight Tonight.
Yeah, for me.
Disc 1, song 2.
This definitely charms nostalgia for me in thinking about, like, when I hear this song, because this is one of the hits, so you a lot of times will hear this in places, and it makes me think about, like, if I really immerse myself into it, that I connect with when I received this album, and the music video, and just being, like, swooned by the sort of, the cinematic feel to it, how big this song feels with all the strings. And you had told me about the stringless version.
Yeah.
And I just recently heard that. It felt like it was for the first time, but maybe I heard it before, but it hit me like it was the first time.
Yeah.
And it moved me, and I was like weepy and like had to blow my nose, and it really was evoking these sort of realizing how this album as a whole, but like the hits as a kid, hearing it on the radio and seeing the music video, was happening at a point in my life where my parents had separated, and I was like, listening to CDs and headphones, and it was kind of like a point in my life where maybe like independence was beginning, where I was like, had like my CD collection and
developing your own tastes.
Yeah, had a lot of time to myself, and so like the separation of my family, my parents' divorce. This album as a whole was like a soundtrack, in a way, is what I felt when I listened to that stringsless version. And I was just like, this is awesome. And those feelings can be kind of like bummy sounding, but there's a point in my life, it was very impactful. And I feel like this song in particular really somehow or another charms all those memories out for me, and not really with like sadness, but just sort of like, hey, I went through that.
Yeah, just the soundtrack to that time.
This was probably used at a lot of high school dances, I bet.
I imagine.
Yeah, this was probably a big one in the 90s for like class of 97, 98.
And it was also, what's cool about the song was that it was also, if you were like I was, and I'm sure you were, if you had already been a Pumpkins fan, so you came in with Siamese Dream, or Gish even earlier, this was not unfamiliar territory. Disarm had kind of come from here as well. string section.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't want to say acoustic because there's not an acoustic, but like not full on rock, ballady, sad, melancholy thing. So we had already, if you liked Disarm, you wanted more of that, Bullet with Butterfly Wings wasn't that. But Tonight could be.
Yeah.
33 could be. So they gave you singles that were still Smashing Pumpkin singles, but they also were giving you these big slabs of guitar rock. Speaking of.
Yeah. Jellybelly.
Jellybelly. A note that I have here on Jellybelly is that you know that it is a good a song as any if it survived being titled Jellybelly.
Yeah, it's
a title that I literally never even think of. I never think of it being called Jellybelly. When I hear this song, I just think of fuzz guitars. I think of the triumphant chorus because it's got just the big. I think of like this being my first. If I'm listening to the album in a sequential order here, it's my first Siamese Dream era song. It's my first like, oh, here's another
here's
bridge.
The Pumpkins, I know.
Yeah. Here's back to like big muff pedals and sort of the optimism. Because again, Bullet with Butterfly Wings is the first single, right?
Yes.
So that is an angry song. You know what I mean?
Much.
Like, so if you came from Today and Disarm and Rocket, Drown, if you came
Will
from,
it really knock you back and being like, oh, is this what the band's doing now?
Yeah, it was a lot more metallic. The sort of the optimism of those songs, even though Today is the most depressing song, there's an optimism in the music of it, which is the point. Right, that Bullet with Butterfly Wings is like, oh, this guy's angry now. Like, we pushed him too far. Like Kurt Cobain's dead. Like, here's another rock star that maybe we messed up a little bit, and here he is reacting, right? And that music video, you know what I mean? Like, everything about it was, like, angry. But if you're a fan, you're still buying the album because it's still good, even though it's changed a little bit. So then you pop the CD in, and you're 3 songs deep, and you hear Jellybelly, and this is your first, like, it's got the anger, but it also has sort of just the fuzzed out, psychedelic almost thing that they did early on.
The guitar lead stuff sounds familiar with like previous albums too. The way there's like a modulation to that.
This part, this like final chorus with the harmony vocals in here, where everything just kind of hits 5th gear finally.
Apparently, Jellybelly was Corgan's first pick for first single.
Yeah, for the first single.
But
I think probably because of the Siamese Dream of it.
Yeah.
I think, like, in his head, in my mind...
Don't worry, folks. We're still going to sound like we were on the last
album. I know
album.
that I keep talking big...
concept of, all this going on here, but we haven't drifted into oblivion.
Yeah, and here's the proof here. Which it's one of my favorites. This album came out at a time where I was learning how to play the guitar. So, like, any of the super guitar-heavy songs instantly floated up to the top of, like, the repeat pile because I was trying to, like, learn them.
Yeah. A lot of good riffs on this one.
Yeah, which actually I feel like goes, like, understated sometimes. I think when we talk about, like, the great, like, riff writers, we talk about the Tony Iommis, and then we talk about, the Van Halens, and we talk about all of that stuff. I feel like Billy Corgan doesn't get his time to shine in terms of, like, guitar rock riff writing royalty. Just keep going with the alliteration there. And this album sort of, like, part of the concept was sort of the death of that. He sort of, like, was celebrating, this is kind of the tombstone, the eulogy of guitar rock. He sort of was already predicting that they were going to be moving away from this, that we're going to go heavy on guitar rock, because it might be the last time you hear us go heavy on guitar rock. We like sort of these electronica things, and we like sort of this other stuff that we're doing now, which is then interesting considering what happens to them on the tour subsequent to this, where they lose a drummer and are almost, like, forced to change anyway.
leaning more into electronic,
Yeah.
drum machines, synthesizers, whole aesthetic change.
We're into a zero now.
Yeah,
with this
zero. Yeah, the guitar riff on this one. I mean, I feel like I can never get tired of hearing. I might say that a few times throughout this album that I couldn't get tired of that riff, that tone. It's so distinctive, and there's there's clips on YouTube I've seen, and one in particular where they're like fleshing this song out in the studio. And it's so awesome how the tone of guitar is like identical to the way that you hear it on the album.
Yeah.
That like, wow, Billy Corgan really has a sound that he has with his instrument, his effects, and that it doesn't like waver from what you would like hear live or what the album has. It gives you like a sense that if you saw them live, you would be hearing those sounds. Like, hey, I know that the way that the noise in between those strums.
And it to me just proves that he knows what he's talking about in terms of what he does. It like proves to me that he has a vision, that he is an auteur on this level, and that like he is particular about things. And if it changed or if it was different every time, you would go, wait, this guy cares? Because it doesn't seem like it. No, he cares. And when he taps into it completely. Like, this album, to me, almost has, like, what do you think, like 4 different song styles. He has, like, 4 different, like
hard, fast, and aggressive.
Yeah, he has the, like, what I call these. This is, like, Rocket to me. Or the optimistic fuzz song.
Yeah.
Right? He has the big, optimistic, almost power ballad, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this song is.
This song is
Here Is No Why.
Here Is No Why. This one has, the guitar in this, the dun 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 dun. It gets stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's one of those songs where like it's rewards you by hanging out with this album by like, oh yeah, this song. I love that part.
Yeah. See, this album to me is such a turning point in the band. It is on every level. It's the last one ever with these 4. You don't get these 4 ever again.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the last. They only made the 3 as the 4 of them.
Yeah.
The 4, like, and at this point they've become like characters. You know James, Darcy, Jimmy Chamberlain, and Billy. You know the 4 of them as 4 individuals, which is not true of other bands. They've all settled into their characters.
Yeah. It can
And
be
they know
consistent for those albums where they're still, that's the lineup.
Yes. So this is the last of the 4 of them. This is what I call the end of the Nature Kids, the Pavement Dig, on Range Life, where he calls them Nature Kids.
Yeah.
They're no longer Nature Kids by a door. They're not paisley, long-haired hippie children singing personal songs. That's been shed here. It's now Billy Corgan as Zero, as this persona, this rock star persona, moving forward, right? He doesn't have the hair. He doesn't have the point of view of the boy anymore, which I think is really big on this record. And I don't feel people talk about it enough. Billy Corgan was the boy for the first couple of records. You know what I mean? I used to be a little boy. He talked a lot from the point of view of being a boy and a child in his own childhood and stuff like that, right? You get all this like, he wore the sweaters. He even kind of looked like a kid, even as an adult.
Yeah, there's a lot of footage of him in cardigans.
Yeah, and had like goofy haircuts when he cut his hair short, right? He kind of embraced that I'm like a boy and that I'm this kind of screwed up boy, right? And by this album, he's shed some of this. He's exercised some of those demons. He's writing from different points of view. He's writing it from an adult now. He's married. He's soon divorced.
It's so easy to talk about these songs. I feel like so much to riff on and then they end. I'm going like, oh man, I had like 3 things on that one I didn't even get out. I mean, now it's starting on Bullet with Butterfly Wings. So
And the momentum.
first single.
That's what I'm saying. And this actually proves it. The fact that I'm already like missing notes and getting behind is the fact that like the momentum of this record, the momentum of the beginning of this, where it's like the sequencing is great. It hits you with a bunch of hits. It hits you with songs that should be hits. It hits you with sort of the fan favorites that aren't hits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I imagine that if you look at Spotify numbers, we get like a real top-heavy, you know, and less as we go on this first disc.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, as it kind of I feel like track plays would wane towards the end because of like the familiars are so kind of condensed.
Front-loaded.
Yeah. This song was the first single to reach the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100, debuting at 28 and peaking at 22, which kind of almost doesn't sound that impressive when you kind of think about the bigger picture there. You're going like, okay, like this music, this song was like, you know, on those charts that represent like super popular and like the numbers of, you know, well, I don't really know how the statistics are created with Billboard, but when I just think of Billboard, I just think of like the most popular music and then the way it's listed, like, and for that to be like this song being their first single to reach that sort of level of popularity was interesting because you're like, oh, what about all those other songs in the past?
Yeah.
But this must have had the right amount of promotion, the music video, all those elements coming together where this gave them a lot of traffic, I guess, so to speak.
So the video, Samuel Bayer directed, same director as Teen Spirit. The Bullet with Butterfly video, Bullet with Butterfly Wings video was directed by the same music video as the Smells Like Teen Spirit video.
Oh, really?
Same music video director, yes, Sam Bayer, who has claimed that this is his favorite video that he's done. That this one.
I feel like Smells Like Teen Spirit's probably the more popular of these two videos.
But I read an interview last night because I was like, is that true? Like, I've heard that. I was like, is that true? And I like Googled it. I was like, oh, here's a couple interviews where he says Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
He still Corgan still has hair in this video.
He has hair.
Still
The
has
last
hair.
time. For the last time. This is it.
Yeah.
It's the first single. It is the perfect Venn diagram sliver to me. It is the perfect middle spot between Siamese Dream and Gish era, Nature Kid, Smashing Pumpkins, I'm a screwed up kid with a screwed up childhood, here's my thoughts on that, here's my awkwardness growing up, but I also love Black Sabbath Supernaut a lot, so here's that. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, now I'm an artist, now I'm established, now I've got a budget, now I get paid to do this, and like I don't have to work a job or anything. Like now I'm just rage-filled because I don't fit in. This alternative thing has blown up, and even though I'm such a part of it, I'm such a torchbearer, I'm such a figurehead, I'm still so angry. is such a wild the dichotomy of William Patrick Corgan Jr.
What was the in this video? Did he have a shirt that said Zero on it?
Yeah, this is the beginning of it.
But there's the song Zero.
Yes, but Zero is a character.
Yeah.
Like Zero has like, I don't want to get into the lore of it because it is another hour. He has follow-up records to this that are in this universe, like retroactively, like sequels and things that like Mellon Collie is a part of a bigger picture of other rock operas that he has done since. The Zero character is also shiny and glass. I think there's these other names that he does. Some real like prog rock stuff that is kind of above my pay grade here on my Smashing Pumpkins fandom.
So the lack of wanting to associate this album as a concept, it seems like it was the beginning or at least a starting point for a lot of concepts that got more deeper as the years have gone on.
Yes. Well, because like at the time, like again, I've referenced The Wall and the Beatles' White Album. The Beatles' White Album is a double record that has no concept, but The Wall is a double album with a huge concept, right? The Beatles' influence on this, I think, was the all bets are off. Like, there's no no's, right? Whatever Billy Corgan is feeling that day, whatever Flood and whatever he's being challenged to do that day would be recorded. All the textures, all the different things, all of throw a lot of textures, lots of layers, lots of things out there that keep the album interesting, right? That's the White Album to me. It's like, oh, there's lots of different textures. There's different types of songs. The sequencing is like, oh, there's a rock song with a ballad with like a goofy little, Beach Boys pastiche, where this has got all the different styles, The only thing that I think that he didn't really utilize as much, not to criticize this album, which I think is a 10 out of 10, but he had 3 other voices in the band that, like, on a double album that I feel like he didn't use.
Yeah.
Like he did everything in his Billy Corgan power to cleanse the palette between songs and to not let anything get stale into, like, the sequencing is, like I said, perfect. I think it's perfect.
Do you mean 3 other voices? You mean like the other band members?
Yeah,
Or, okay.
and I mean their physical voices.
Yeah.
I don't mean just them as songwriters and stuff. I mean, like, the Beatles and Pink Floyd have the advantage of multiple singers. And when you do these sprawling conceptual records, having different voices to mix it up is a strength.
Yeah, I think the outro song uses all 4 of the voices. There is maybe one song, I think, that has James singing.
James gets his one, and it's a Beatles.
Yeah. It has a sort of a sleepy vibe to it.
Yeah, it's a Paul George song. It's somewhere in between a Paul George song.
I think I also remember reading too that Darcy had like a lot of like backups that were recorded, but that didn't make the sort of final versions of mixes and such too.
And that's so interesting because she's such a part of the band, and he understood her importance in the band. I think he still understands her importance in the band. And sometimes, maybe I'm reading too far into this, but sometimes I wonder if his thinking that Darcy is important to the band is because of her contributions to the band, or more of like the artist side of him, the artistic side of Billy Corgan, that thinks that visually it's interesting to have a pretty lady in your band.
Yeah.
The proof of that is he forms a band in 2001 called Swan, and there's a pretty lady bass player in that band.
Yeah. Sticking with the formula there.
And then replaced Darcy with another pretty lady bass player with Melissa Altamar.
Yeah.
So, like...
Whole.
Yeah. And then Paz was in Swan, who was in A Perfect Circle and Pixies.
Yeah.
So, like, there is a part of me that wonders, like, and I say this as a person who completely defends Darcy, but I just sometimes wonder if Darcy's importance to the band, or the importance to Billy Corgan in the band, was more as Billy Corgan the artist, and his understanding of everything visual.
This song is called An Ode to No One. The last song, I don't even think we said the title of that one. That was To Forgive.
To Forgive.
That was quite a slow, sleepy one. As a kid, I would have skipped that one.
It would have been one that I skipped. I have here my own like personal thoughts when I was just listening to it last night. I just scribbled down on the back of my cards were my in-the-moment thoughts on that one. And I just have beautiful slow burn.
Yeah.
And literally like helps pace the album.
Yeah.
It's just an album pacer.
I wouldn't call it filler, but it just feels like it's
There's
like
no filler on the record.
Yeah.
I don't think that the album has any what I would call filler, which would be like a band like, I don't want to take shots at other bands, but there were other alternative rock bands that put out albums of this time that had a lot of radio singles that had filler, which were just like, oh, this is just them going back to that same formula or whatever, and they just needed, 6 more songs on the record in order to sell the 3 other songs or whatever, where this, again, everything is very purposeful, everything is a flavor, everything is a variety of some sort that Billy Corgan has spiced in and the sequencing and the space, the time, the fact that a song can be 8 minutes long. Some of the 8-minute long songs have the big guitar riffs.
Yeah, if you're hanging out and listen to it, you're going like, oh yeah, this has that part. Some of those songs almost feel like they're 2 or 3 songs in one song.
Yeah.
It's just such a, I feel like an example of the album overall, but you know, these individual songs, how you can appreciate even the ones that might be of a slower tempo, where you just really feel like you're listening to something that's been crafted by like seasoned musicians that have honed like their band together,
yeah,
and have created these
yeah,
different songs that don't feel like they're wandering from something that they can pull off.
You know what really struck me on this last couple of re-listens for preparing for this was Jimmy Chamberlin, and how like this album is like just as important to like him. His drumming pushes the album. You can hear the relationship. You can hear that his main songwriting partner is Jimmy Chamberlin. You can hear on this album, right here, this slowdown.
Oh man, this breakdown.
This breakdown is also, remember how I mentioned earlier that there's like the 4 different like speeds? Yeah. This is one of them, which is the snotty Billy Corgan song. There's always the snotty, with butterfly wings, the snotty rock song. And I consider this.
Hold on a second, what's the lyric? Coil my tongue around a bumblebee mouth? Like what the fuck does that mean?
You know what I wanted to do, and I just like ran out of time, but I thought that a really funny like segment to do song to song would be what I called the bonkers Billy Corgan lyric. Yeah. And just every song pick one lyric that just goes, I don't know. This one's called so on the back of the CD, the album, the case, it's called An Ode to No One, but online it'll say fuck you, and then in parentheses, An Ode to No One. And when you look inside the CD booklet, the lyric booklet, it says fuck you, An Ode to No One. You're like, oh, I never picked up on that sort of censorship there, where on the outside of the case, there is no profanity, but then the profanity lies in, you know, inside the packaging, or nowadays on the internet, none of that really matters or whatever. Yeah. But it's kind of interesting because you're like, oh, this song actually is called Fuck You. An Ode to No One.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the like, oh, okay, once you know that it's like a divorce record, sometimes in there is some like, some of the like, especially talking about like disconnecting.
That static that just happened at 4 minutes and 27 seconds into the song, I thought my CD was messed up, and then I listened to the remaster version on like online, and it has that weird static sound. I'm like, what a cool element to throw in there, because it almost sounds like it would be a problem, like an audio issue. But I'm like, whoa, that's character in the song, you know? Like,
and it almost like, it's funny that like now that you pointed out, because now the next song that starts after it has like this like distorted. It almost sounds like, with the way that it's like distorted there, that kind of crispy-ness, it's almost like it was trying to break through at the end of the last song. It almost gives like...
or they're hooking up a pedal to get the sound for this
song. For the next song
and
that's
they created
coming.
some static in one of the pedals.
Yeah, and because that staticky stabs in this song. The song Love, right?
Yeah, Love is the name of this song.
We're 9 tracks in.
It has a flanger sound for this sort of lead groove.
Yep.
And there's different types of like distortions in the song. There's certain parts of drum hits that have like the distinctive sound to them that doesn't sound like the rest of the drums throughout the song. There's also a lead part that gets so loud and ear-piercing in this song. Yeah. Where like if you're listening to it in any format, it seems to like stand out and catch your attention. And it made me think like, gosh, you know, if this were my song and I was mixing it, I'd be like, oh, I gotta turn that down. Like that's obviously like louder than the full mix. Like that's not the right balance. But then hearing this song, hearing something like that happen, it makes you think of the intentional aspect of that, where it's almost like,
oh,
that's cool. Like it's so ear-piercing. It's like this sort of like, this is happening right now. It really calls your attention. And a song that kind of can be like
hypnotic.
Yeah, with the groove to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, very inspiring with the elements of production on this particular song.
This one is the first one that feels the most of what their future sounds are going to go.
Yeah.
We've got the drum machine, even though I think there's still real drums in there too. Maybe. But we've got electronica tinged, where like a door and then later machina sort of ends up right there. There's little
Yeah.
synthy hits.
Yeah, like what is that? Is that a percussive sound? Is that synth things? Stabs?
Any of that stuff there, I just go, there's the flood of it all. I just think like that must be the influence. I have on my note here, the flood influence is felt for the first time. I really feel like this is sort of the blueprint. They did a song, they did some soundtrack songs right after this. They did one for Lost Highway.
Yeah.
And then the Batman one.
Batman.
And both of them are like electronica tinged.
There's the lead.
Yeah.
That's a very sizzly, like how would you even describe that? Like it's like 4 distortion pedals or something. It doesn't even sound like that. It's an interesting kind of sound to it. Sizzly and high frequency. You're listening to that in the car and you feel like you've just like assaulted your passengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like, it sounds like processed drum machine, like toms or something. But then it does sound as well layered in there, Jimmy Chamberlain's
Yeah, it sounds like there's like
drums
real
too.
snares in there.
But they're being processed in a way, like there's distortion on drums that it isn't just a little bit of it's like full-blown like crunch to drum hits.
And it's crazy because I just got done praising Jimmy Chamberlain and talking about how he's a real strength. But I think that that's also part of the flavor of the album, is that Jimmy Chamberlain has a very distinctive style, a very like, he's a very like forward pushing drummer, a lot of kick drum, a lot of just, pushing drums. So for just different flavors and textures on a sprawling record like this, having maybe Jimmy do less, play along to drum machines and clicks and use, these little like reprise parts.
You can hear like the strings or the synth sounds that lay in the background of the song as it fades out. So this next song has started, track 10, or on track 10, only track 10, disc 1, Cupid De Locke, which apparently is a reference to Matthew Locke, an English Baroque composer during the 17th century, who wrote the score to a masque entitled Cupid and Death, which is a story about Cupid and Death getting their arrows mixed up and causing great distress and humor to ensue. To me, this song has another unique sound to it compared to the previous song and other songs. It always makes me think of like video game music, like Zelda or something. And this was probably a song as a kid I probably heard that first part, but then it kind of like, getting towards the end of the album, there's still some goodies, good tracks in here where you're like, you want to get to. But yeah.
This one to me is a reinforcement song of the concept of the record. It's kind of like don't lose sight of what we're doing here. It's not all just guitar rock. We're still gonna do these like look at the album artwork again and listen to this song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where sometimes the album artwork, like this song, Cupid De Locke, sounds like this cover or some of the artwork looks, the CD itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are these elements of sort of reestablishing sort of the concept of the record, which again doesn't have a narrative, or it does, I don't really know, but it doesn't have it's not American Idiot where I'm following a character through this, or it's not The Who's Tommy where I'm following this clear character through this.
The CD's skipping right now. It's not skipping, it's just kind of pausing. Well, that's one of the attributes. You know, I remember when this CD player did that for this particular song.
The song?
Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to hold the skip track button. Maybe it'll fast forward into a... No, 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 no. Oh, man. This is throwing the whole thing off now.
It's fine. It's fine.
All right, I'm going to hit pause. Start on. So it's technical difficulties. I don't think I can. I tried fast forwarding. I just jumped to track 11. Man, if only they had like better options for technology and listening to music, like something without this complicated media playback machine. Like, what if it was just digital? I mean, why can't they just make things simple?
What if I didn't even have to own it?
Yeah, but the last track was Cupid De Locke that got cut short because of technical difficulties.
But again, it's one that as a kid I probably didn't listen to that much. It's again, like I said, kind of a reestablishing of the themes and the sounds and the visual. It's kind of a glue song in terms of just, again, that song sounds like that font looks.
Yeah.
You know, like that song sounds... Baroque composer.
Romeo and Juliet. It feels like it could be on the soundtrack too.
Yeah,
it's not like a harp. I don't know what that instrument is, but just like very, this.
But that's like the
classical string instrument.
That's
sound.
like the third kind of the Billy Corgan songwriting. We get like this sort of like longing, whimsical, love ballady things that pepper the back halves of both of these discs.
Yeah, that was track 10. So the album is approaching its end. I believe we've got 4 more tracks. So up next, track 11 is Galapagos.
Galapagos.
Which has a little cymbal kind of very smooth sounding, very calm. And I think in contrast to the previous song, it's not as radical as some of the other song transitions from one song to the next. Galapagos.
We've settled in here to these songs. If you're in and like you've been bashed by a bunch of guitars for a little while, we've now like taken just a little bit of a break here between the last couple of songs. We gave you a little electronic drum thing. We're gonna give you cymbal swells.
Some sonically calm production. This is one as a kid I would have skipped. But at this point I definitely have a regard for I let it roll because it's like it feels like it would throw the balance off of the listening experience. And you're like, who knows, maybe I forgot that there's a part in this that I like a lot. And even though I keep forgetting, I'll stick with it in case I'm like, oh yeah, it's this one. So the name Galapagos, you think of Galapagos Islands, you think of Darwin, and I had read somewhere that there was sort of quotes and interviews where he kind of talked about this relating to the concept of isolation found within his marriage, and that the Galapagos Islands, Darwin studying these species that are isolated and have their own sort of capture of evolution in that specific isolated location. That sort of seems to be an inspiration to this song, was Darwin's sort of connection with the Galapagos Islands. Yeah, it's weird to think about connecting that with a crumbling marriage.
Yeah, it's also like, to me, it's like a mouthfeel word. It's another like
Galapagos.
It's just another word that like Billy Corgan likes words.
Mayonnaise, Jellybelly.
Yeah, yes, he likes bizarrely interesting sounding words. Galapagos is.
How often do you read or hear or see the word Galapagos?
Yeah,
because it's just like those islands. I can't think of any other examples
in
like, culture that refers to Galapagos.
And he you brought up mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is spelled wrong.
Is it?
His version, the same way Mellon Collie.
Oh, okay.
He is into bizarre spellings.
Is it spelled the way you would
And that's like
misspelled
less
if you
ends. Yeah, I guess it's misspelled the way that if you just spelled it wrong.
like you could misspell. You know, I feel like that'd be one of those words too. How many people probably would misspell that word
And Mellon
because
Collie,
of
probably.
because of maybe seeing that word and being like, oh, I'm a Pumpkins fan. That's such a cool track title, and like you see that title on the CD or the tape, and then when you go to spell it, you're flubbing it up because of
Why can't I find the guitar tab for this? I'm spelling it right.
yeah.
Oh, there's less N's in it. Mayonnaise.
This has elements that remind me of like Tonight Tonight, you know, like
the ballady thing.
ringing out
Yes.
chords, drums that sort of create this sort of building,
Yeah, it's got the sort of the big power ballad thing.
that I don't hear any strings in this.
No, you know what's they use the strings up early.
Yeah.
The strings aren't like you think concept record and like rock opera. Even though I don't know that too many people call this rock opera.
Oh, I think there's some strings.
They're
in
there,
There's some strings.
but like the obvious strings on the record are again front heavy.
They hit you in the beginning with
Yeah.
it. And they don't overdo it either. Like they're
Yeah.
in there, but not every single song. And songs like this, it's subtle enough where it's not taking the main stage like as much as it was on Tonight Tonight. That was definitely felt like, whoa, I'm listening to like classical music half like when I hear this song. Strings and orchestra sounds. Yeah, so that's the nice little serenade of calmness. And then this next song, track 12, Muzzle. Man, that's such a great melody.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And then the drum fill. This is a song that I could listen to a couple times in a row.
Yeah.
Like it's like a treat after hanging out for some of these other songs that you don't recognize or remember.
Yeah.
You get hit with this and you're like, oh yeah, this one, I love this, and it gives you what you like about it throughout the song multiple times. This also I think it wasn't a single, but it was like single status.
Yeah, this is like a promotional single or whatever they would call it.
Radio stations would
play it anyway.
and so people had a familiarity with this beyond just the album listening experience because it was played in other places like the radio. I don't remember as a kid hearing it on the radio, but it definitely is a familiar track to me like it was.
It falls in the Jellybelly of like the big guitar rock songs that I gravitated towards the most. The non-hit, there's 3 songs on this record that I really like that weren't the hit songs and that weren't 33. 33 is a different song to me. And we'll get to that when we get to it. And 1979. They stand alone.
Disc 2.
Yeah, the disc 2 songs almost, even though one of the songs I'm gonna pick is a disc 2 song, but there are 3 guitar rock songs on this record that like are like my 3 sort of like go-tos, and it's Jellybelly, Muzzle, and Where the Boys Fear to Tread, the first song on disc 2. Those are, to me, like 3 sort of peas in a pod of like fuzzed out guitars that aren't as snotty. They don't feel as like, they have the optimism, they have the Siamese dream feel of like just like the wall of sound, the My Bloody Valentine influence more than the industrial influence that comes later. Yeah, always one of my favorites. Also, I think what makes it, to me, rise above some of it, it feels like this is one of the few not coming from a character. He's saying I. Yeah. He's saying we. He's saying me a lot in this song. It's you. Yeah. He's not, this isn't, doesn't feel like a character. This feels like Billy Corgan writing, tapping into himself again. That, the earlier Billy Corgan.
I didn't have a lot of notes on this one too. One of my favorites on the whole album, and it's the one I had like the least probably amount of notes on.
I think it's because it's such a quintessential Smashing Pumpkins song. Like, what is there to say when it's just like it hits all of the things that they do well in one song? Because it also kind of feels like Rocket.
Yeah.
It's got the droniness.
There's such a solid melody to it that it gets stuck in your head, and you'd like I said, I could revisit it. I mean, I could hit track back and just listen to it one more time. Listen to it in the car with the family. I'm like, listen to this drum fill, everybody. Like, listen to that. Listen to that.
I read that drum fill was inspired by Big Star. That he like told him like the guy from Big Star drums loosely like that, where fills are longer than they should. I read
Wow.
the Big Star influence. Also, like that I read that it was Muzzle. Did you read how the title?
No.
Or what the title? That just like he's his own problem. Billy Corgan knows that his mouth is his own problem. That his life would be easier.
Yeah, Muzzle being like
if he was muzzled.
Yeah, it's like
And being self-aware is half of the battle.
That title is definitely another one of the word play kind of things where it's just like a
word.
Fun.
An interesting word. There's Z's in it.
Two Z's.
Yeah.
So the next song, track 13.
Here we come with the biggest challenge.
Yeah, so this one is 9 minutes and 15 seconds long. And we are 42 seconds into it, and we just heard a very faint cymbal splash. Like build up, you know. And this one, when it starts too, it's almost like, did the album end? Because there's like the sound so faint and it takes so long for it to build up.
And Muzzle would work as an album ender.
Yeah, it definitely would feel like, oh, that was the end of the album because it's like this triumphant.
It feels like it's a closing of something.
Yeah, this is interesting in terms of sequencing an album to play with the feelings of the song tempos, the moods, and then with arranging those, how it creates this feel where you just wouldn't even expect this to happen, and then you get like 40 seconds in, and you're like, oh, the album's still going. What's this song going to sound like?
Porcelina of the Vast Oceans.
Yeah, it didn't even say the title. Yeah,
a song that is as long as its title implies.
Yeah. I don't know if I've got anything. Yeah, I don't have anything on here about like where the title comes from.
Yeah, you know what? For being the longest song on here, maybe we can play a little catch up here because the notes. You know what? My notes. I'd say it's the most Pink Floyd song on the album.
Yeah, that's a good way to. Yeah, that's a good way to. There's a good comparison, and Pink Floyd with the Wall and all that.
Yes, it feels the most like the Wall had given them permission to just mess about like this for a while.
All right, so 2 minutes, 15 seconds in, it sounds kind of like a Pumpkin song.
Before you get the riff, yeah.
Like
those
a full
big,
band.
Cool, stabby.
And so, the song does have it's like different parts to it. And this is one I would have skipped as a kid. And the only other thing I have in here that's notable is there's a point lyrically where he says dilly-dally. And I always just like, it just sounds like one of those kind of like words you'd hear in your home as a kid that you thought like your mom made up or something.
That like not a word that a respected artist would.
Yeah, that he'd put into his rock album.
Yeah. Into his grand opus.
Dilly-dally.
His life work.
But this song, listening to it in this era of my life, I have a more mature perspective to appreciate what's happening now. Like, this is a very, it has a calmness it starts off with, and then it brings you the rock, but then it drops back down to here into this sort of calm part. And it just feels like I'm listening to a story. I'm very oblivious when it comes to lyric interpretation, so there's dilly-dally. So, I still don't really understand the song, but to me it almost feels like the vibes, it's sort of like a story in itself.
Yeah.
And, again, 9 minutes and 15 seconds long, so it's quite a ride.
To me, this song feels that it was built out of a jam. It's got jam written to me. It doesn't feel like Billy Corgan sitting down in his room writing some stuff. It feels sort of organic with the big rock stabs. Really do feel like people in a room bashing it out for a little while, and what if we just mellow it out? I don't know. A 9-minute long song by a rock band is tough without it just being sort of a built in the studio jam song to me. I could be way wrong about that, but that's the impression I've always got. that it was like this like. Well, it's interesting because typically on like a double album or like a rock album or like some sort of bigger conceptual album, you put kind of a song in the middle that is like the centerpiece, you know, the centerpiece song to it or whatever, right? That's sort of like, you know, our character is this far on his journey. You know, we're in the second act of the three-act play, right? And we're setting up the last, you know. And this album, because it's not that, doesn't do that, and it allows its longest song to just meander. It just wanders. There he is with his like weird, like it's Porcelina, you know, Stumbleine, the Linas of it all.
They sound like names or words too that could very much be more regular from an era that this album has sort of an aesthetic of like.
Well, because all the names he uses. Look at the names that are dropped on here. He uses both Porcelina, Mary, which is also biblical, so it's as old as it's ever been.
Quite a bit of biblical dialogue in here too. God and devil and Jesus.
Lily, right?
Lily.
There's a reference of Lily, which is again kind of like an antique name.
19th century vibes all throughout.
Justine.
Referenced
in 1979.
A lot of those eens. Yeah, and that feels like dated.
He's not just saying names of people that are, they're not even his own loved ones' names.
Porcelina almost sounds like Josephina.
This to me, Porcelina of the Vast Oceans, that song title feels the most later Smashing Pumpkins. Like the stuff that he would be doing later when the band like came back together. He really got into like longer song titles. That became more of a Smashing Pumpkins later thing. Now, man, I challenge you to like look at some of the song titles and album titles of like the last bit of his input, and like I can't pronounce them.
Like it has like French words and such.
Yeah, he's moved on from like just interesting words that you're familiar with, like Galapagos, to like, he has one that's, I called it autumn, but I think it's just A-T-U-M. No, A-T-U-M? Atom?
Atom?
Like the spellings on some of the newer records and stuff, like they put, I was reading a story that the newest record, which I don't remember the name of it. It's like 3 words that I don't know what either of or any of the 3 words are. They fed it into like an AI, and like, what does this mean? And the AI didn't know.
I mean, that's pretty brilliant in a way too, to make something so unique.
It's his own thing.
And like distinctively unique.
Yeah. That's how much he cares about like all of these things, that he's like even moved on from just normal language.
Do you think that would be like sort of like almost like a typical almost what happens to a musician, an artist in their development in their lifetime, where they have like eras where they put out, I mean, there's like a peak almost for everything, and like an artist has a peak where they had the most reception, the most traffic, the most success, but you know, as that calms down, they may still continue to be the artist that they are. And it's almost like a challenge where like you'd be bored to write the same album over and over again. And so you are constantly, not constantly, but you, as you develop, you're pushing towards more experimental or avant-garde, or just like, how do I not repeat myself? And like, how do I make something that's interesting to me to put forth all this creative energy, and it almost just seems kind of like, I imagine you could probably, if you thought about it long enough, a lot of examples of artists that as their careers aged, their output got more and more like distinctively unique and kind of like distancing almost from like a core fan base that was like really there at that peak, you know, where I feel like for me being 10, 11, 12 years old for this album, you know, it was a peak for being impressionable and like influenced by the culture and what was on the radio, and you know, wanting to buy something that cost over $20 for a few songs I knew, and that, you know, as the albums went on, my interest in wait, that song end?
Yep.
Oh snap! Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I was just kind of rambling on that.
Take me down.
So track 14, the last track of the disc 1,
It's James Iha's contribution.
Yeah, Take Me Down is James. Is that how you say it? Iha?
I've always said Iha.
Yeah, I feel like it's like insulting to even like try to say the name and get it wrong. So I just refer him like by James. Like
James, yeah.
Just as familiar as Billy or
Yeah.
Darcy.
Darcy Retzky.
Or Jimmy.
Yeah. Well, that's the type of band they were, though. They existed in the era, and they knew that. They, like I said, they almost played up the 4-character archetype. I feel like you could, on the spot, I'll be bad at it, but you could put the Smashing Pumpkins, the Imperial lineup, they call it. You know, your like most classic, successful lineup, the Imperial era. Their Imperial lineup of Darcy, Billy, Jimmy, and James, right?
Yeah, Billy.
James and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Those 4, you could match them up against like the Sex and the City. You know what I mean? The character archetypes, the party animal and the leader and the like the smart one, and you know what I mean? Like there's the like they became those like weird superheroes almost.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but I mean, there's like extra characters that break 4 characters in there.
But it's typically like the 4, like
Yeah.
the Ninja Turtles or
Yeah.
whatever, where it's like, oh,
There's an example,
they each follow the character archetype, and the Smashing Pumpkins almost like did that. They came from an era where you like learned all of that stuff. This song, definitely I would have switched. It's interesting because I would have known as a kid that was not Billy Corgan.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't care enough about the song to care about who it was.
Yeah, I know, because in my notes, I was listening to this, and I was like, who's singing this song?
Yeah.
And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's the other guitar player. I was like, I'm that unfamiliar, where I was just like, who in the world's doing this? And then I look it up, it says, yeah, James
Iha.
Iha. And I read online too that this was his sort of contribution to the album, and that Billy kind of had a hard time finding a place where it would fit in the album, so he put it here at the end, and James was kind of like slighted by that move to kind of like bury the song at the very end of disc 1, and that kind of... it said it killed his desire to contribute to the band as a writer from that moment on. Like almost like here guys, here's my song. And it's like, oh yeah, we would put that at the very end, past the 9-minute song, after that 9-minute jam, where people thought the album was over. Apparently, you know, like, and then you put that there. I could see that perspective where he'd be a little like jaded by that.
Sure.
Because, I mean,
There's a part of me that also thinks, like, if you don't want your song to be at the end of the album, don't give me such a yawner, though. Like,
yeah.
Like, there's also, like, I don't know. I feel like if I would have given that, I don't know.
It's also, in a way, a way to look at, like, well, it's easy. I mean, it's like an easy placeholder, though. At the very, it's not sandwiched in between 2 other tracks, making it more skippable. Like, if you've gotten this far in the album to get to this last track, you're listening to that song too. You wouldn't get through the whole album and then go like, no, I'm gonna skip this. Oh, the CD's over. I think you'd probably just listen to this too and just be like, oh man, what's all right? Ready for disc 2? Where's those other radio hits?
I think its placement is also really purposeful in that he's going to give you the yawniest of the songs right before he's about to hit you with big guitars again. Because he doesn't mess around. There's no preamble on disc 2. There's no big introduction. There's no, we hit the ground running.
Inside of this double disc CD, it's got a little artwork book that just has, it's just artwork. There's no, it looks like more, okay, so you see some of the kind of collaging in here, and you can see how that would be a collage on the front cover, though. I never knew that. And then on the last spread of this booklet, it's got the band and Darcy holding the carrot. Mm-hmm. in the background, which is like, I don't know what the hell that is. Are they at like a solar panel field or something?
Yeah.
And then they have the fonts in here, which is the same font they used in the lyric booklet, which in the notes I had, I did have the name of that written down, but I don't know if I don't know that off the top of my head without looking at it. But they have a theme for the album.
Yeah,
and
it's
here's
one of the two type fonts that is like mostly associated with.
And this is the 4-character archetype you're talking about, where like you look at this, they all look like characters. And Billy's wearing the Zero shirt.
And the silver pants.
He's in
the full regalia.
So then on the other side, I've got this the booklet in here that's got a nice textured paper. It's got that very familiar album cover font. And then it's all black and white. The paper is like this like cream color. And then this is where all the lyrics are, using the same font as the last pages on that booklet on the other side. And then illustrations by the guy that did the whole aesthetic, the artwork for the album.
The inclusion of lyrics was also very crucial to me as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, having something like a book to go through when you're listening to this bruiser, there's a lot to take in. And
kept me engaged.
Yeah.
For a guy whose like voice is so interesting and can play with words so much. The heart logo.
Yeah, man. I remember I penned that on some binders back in the day.
Yep.
I was like, it was.
And that was like the reference photo to me, was the one inside this book.
Yeah.
Was the one I physically had, so I could like draw it. Like, oh, where's my CD book? So I could draw this on something. So, perfect packaging. Again, the 4-dimensional aspect of this as a visual, as a still photo, as every single aspect is a piece of art.
Not too bad a condition. I don't know if we're getting any scratches. I think when I listened to this before, I didn't get any skips on this disc, unlike the first one. This one is now almost like the opposite of the other disc, where it's like a blue, like a baby blue. It's got that kind of cherub, that kind of Cupid look, but this one looks frowny.
Sad, it's got a little tear.
Yeah, a little tear on there. Murdered somebody in jail. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Twilight to Starlight. So, pop that in, and I've got to pee, but I think I'm just gonna hold it in, and I think it's gonna add to my like kind of
propulsion.
Yeah, so when I got into this album just recently, I had kind of stumbled upon it by pulling out my CD collection, wanting to listen to some CDs, and most of my discs were in those normal jewel cases. I took and disassembled those and put those all in like little paper envelopes and recycled all those plastic cases like 15 years ago, so I could compile more into a lot more CDs in a small space. But this album remained because of its unique case and everything. So I saw this in one of the smaller boxes I pulled aside, and it put it in my head, and I had 33 stuck in my head. So that's on this disc 2, and so I grabbed this disc, and this is where I start off at. And I put it in my car CD player, and I was like, wow, I'm not used to listening like to real CDs in my car CD player, because I'm usually listening to like stuff off of my phone through the cassette tape adapter.
Yeah.
So sonically, like I'm hearing this and it's like, whoa, this is this big production. It's like it sounds so good in my car with these blown speakers somehow. And I was like the clarity of it, and it was like I felt so cool pulling out my driveway, heading to wherever my destination was, like listen to this track. I'm like,
this song, Where the Boys Fear to Tread, the first track on the second disc?
Where Boys Fear to Tread. I'm hearing it too. I'm like, I don't know what this song's called, but this is like, I'm in for a good ride here.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Like I referenced it earlier, it's one of my favorites, just like guitar jam. I with Muzzle and Jellybelly are my like trio of guitar rock songs that I like. Is it about Courtney Love?
Yeah, that's one of the only other notes I had on it was it's courting to Courtney Love. The song is about her and Trent Reznor. That's one of the things I saw online, and it says like that Love claims that Corgan, Love's ex-boyfriend, was angry when he found out Reznor and Love were in a relationship, and this song is the product of that distress. which to me, again, I am very oblivious when it comes to lyric interpretation. I haven't listened for that. There's nothing in here that strikes me, but there are other songs with that same. Actually, the next song, where there's a connection there with Courtney Love. But in this one, yeah.
Well, it's hard to ignore the fact that it was 95, so it's a year after Kurt Cobain's death.
Yeah.
Which has to be talked about. What I liked about this was like a first disc, a second disc, first song. They're just reintroducing the guitar again. We hadn't had a loud guitar in a couple songs.
Yeah.
But they were just like, the guitars are back, we're back.
Yeah, wake up, don't fall asleep. Come on, guys, we're still here.
And he establishes it with the first couple.
This song also the ending to this song has a very abrupt. Yeah, it doesn't end on like a note. Like it ends in the middle of like a beat, and it's whoa. You're like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah,
and,
I have that even written. I have abrupt ending.
Yeah, and
abrupt ending.
Yeah, abrupt ending into like a noise, like a static kind of like noise where it's very like attention getting, where like it keeps you like, what's happening, what's going on, which is much in contrast to the way that the first disc ends, where it kind of slowly transitions between those last couple of tracks after Muzzle, and then this song brings the rock back, and then has these interesting production aspects to it, like the abrupt ending that you're just not expecting that. It's like you feel like a studio album. Why would you go like, oh, let's make this song cut off, like as if there's a technical issue?
Yeah. Now here's some interesting thoughts I have on this song.
Next song, track 2, Bodies.
I perfectly worked out where the break between the two discs is the break in the book.
I never noticed that. Oh, that's slick.
Is nice with the. Also, Billy Corgan, the only man, will start an entire second side of his grand opus rock thing with the words "candy cane."
Candy cane. Yeah.
Candy cane are the first words of that song. Candy cane walks down.
Man, another of the many details with the way that the whole album is put together musically, and like the physical, the tangible experience, how there's like these details like that where you're like, gosh, I feel like that wasn't an accident.
Yeah, just Billy Corgan.
Make sure this booklet, breaks in the middle where the album breaks. So this song has the lyrics, love is suicide, which the first few times I listened to it, I was like, is he saying love is suicide or life is suicide? And I was like, life is suicide? Like, whoa, that's pretty heavy sounding, but love is cool too. And then I looked up the lyrics and I was like, oh, he's saying love is suicide. Yeah. Which goes back to the Courtney Love reference, where that would be like a potential connection, where like, oh, that makes sense.
And then I can't get out of
and suicide. Like, whoa, that's kind of
a year
heavy.
After. Yeah. I can't get out of my head Soundgarden. The love is like suicide.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe that's another sort of.
So like that has also been like, oh, these guys were really trying to tell us some things.
Man, I love how he gets his vocals are just the straining in the chorus for this song.
See, that is the advantage that Billy Corgan does have, though, when I was talking about the voices. He at least has a couple voices in his own head.
Yeah.
He got a couple different, like the Paul McCartney, he's got like 3 or 4 different voices that Billy Corgan's got a couple. Like I said, he can be snotty. Yeah. He can push things through his nose entirely. He's got that banshee wail thing that he does. He's got a good scream.
There's a spoken. I think one of the songs here has him just kind of spoken word
just
too.
Speaking.
You hear that on this album. I wonder how the variety in his vocal dynamics played in live performances over the years of their career playing live. Like how, to me, I mean, it just seems like that would be not easy.
Well, I just saw him live 2 months ago, and he's real loose. Like he's a lot of sounds, so instead of words, it felt like.
Yeah.
It felt like they were. I don't call them lazy, but there were times where I'm like, he's making the noise of the words more than articulating the words.
Wow. So was he still kind of hitting those sort of different levels though, of like the bristly kind of whine?
Yeah,
to like
he was
soft voice.
Yeah, he was doing he was still Billy Corgan. It just his interpretation of things where like you're singing along and you know that he knows the words, but the way that he would pronounce it be like, is he doing that on purpose? Is he messing that up? Is he bored with this?
29 years later, and he's still performing it and pulling it off. I mean, would you say it was?
It was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine some artists, probably a lot of artists, 30 years after particular songs they put out that were popular and familiar to people, that it's difficult to sing those things at all. Where I always think about, what is it, The Who? I think about like there's like in my head there's a clip of The Who and the vocal performance in that, or like Guns N' Roses, or like these artists that 30 some years later singing those hits live, you see clips of it and you're going like, oh
yeah.
If you feel for him, like it's tough, I guess, to really do that still, you know?
Yeah, it was very good. His voice was very good. It was the whole night was actually pretty good because Billie Joe Armstrong, who they were opening for, Green Day, was also just as good.
The Billies.
Yeah, the Billies. You know, I didn't think about that.
The Billies.
Now we're on to 33.
Yes, track 3, song is called 33. Yeah, this is the song that made me actually want to break the album out and listen to it, because the melody was in my head. Perhaps it's like the chorus part, and it's like the song kind of does this cool thing too, where it kind of plays with certain parts, but doesn't give you the full part until like the second part in the song, where then it gives you that full.
Yeah.
And it's just like I wanted to hear that.
They
and
layer.
So, yeah. This song. I like it a lot, but I actually feel like when it came out, it was the last single of the song, or of the album, to come out, the last music video, and this was like at the tail end of, I think it was in like late 90s.
Yeah, this was the end,
Like
because they were only a
96.
trio.
Yeah, late 96, kind of like when this, I think, would have been
because Jimmy
out.
Chamberlain's not in the video.
Oh, okay.
So they are moving forward as the three-piece, which they do in the music video. The three of them are just shuffling through. The music video directed by Billy Corgan's then girlfriend, not the one he was divorcing, the one that also did
Bullet?
the Zero
Or
video.
Zero.
She was like a visual artist, which is why those videos are very visually interesting.
Well, this video has...
Yelena Yemchuk?
I did not even... I don't think I remember even reading that name in my research on this.
Yelena Yemchuk. She also took the Zero, that like real Nosferatu-looking photo that's on the Zero single.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was, like I said, she was involved in some of the visual aspects of this record as well.
Well, I feel like, the visuals throughout this album are all on point, and I feel like this video is on point with the theme, but I hated this video.
Uh-huh.
And I say that hated like it's past tense. I still kind of feel like cringy to this video. There's a lot of like almost awkwardness with like the staring and the looks, and there's just like a vibe to it where I feel like it's doing whatever it's trying to do well, but like I can't stand this video. Like it's almost like it's something about it's like too on the head or something.
Very gauzy. It's very gauzy, like it's like very dreamlike.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it's like it's almost like it's like saturated with this style in a way where it was like a turn off to me as a kid. Somehow or another, the song still really burned into me. Where, maybe it was the song that my aunt may have used in her wedding, whatever, and maybe she used both, but even this would seem like a weird choice for a wedding too.
Yeah,
because it almost seems like
you still get Billy Corgan's voice, which is always challenging.
And lyrically, is this like a happy song or a sad song? I'm just oblivious to interpreting these things, but it seems like it could go either way. I don't know, but just the lyrics in there, they get stuck in my head, and I can hear them over and over again, and it's like it just depends on what mood you're in as to what this is kind of leaning towards. But I don't know, the video, it just seems like kind of a downer. You know, it's dark.
I interpreted it as a downer. I interpreted the video almost as like, hey, we're in a weird new chapter of this band, and here we are pushing forward. My thoughts on the song, my only real thought other than it's one of my favorites, is, now that it's wrapping up, borrow Trent Reznor's Warbly piano. It's got that Nine Inch Nails,
Yeah.
boom, 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 warbly piano thing. That's such a Nine Inch Nails staple. It is all over that song.
This next song, track 4, "In the Arms of Sleep."
Yeah.
Before I roll into deets on that, there's more about 33 where there's a that was a drum machine that Billy Corgan ran through a flanger and for the demo, and they reused that same element. Like they took that from the demo, and that was in that final version because he couldn't like recreate the same sound, I guess, in the studio. Which is an element that there's another thing that happens on this album where a demo or an element of a
Stumbleine.
demo, yeah, where it comes into it's like, whoa, like this is like,
We can't top the demo.
yeah, like wow, and the final, this big album, there's elements of demos,
Yeah.
and you're like, it's interesting how that makes the cut, and you're going like, when you read and learn that, you're going like, oh, it's just pretty cool and inspiring about like production.
Yeah.
techniques.
When I learned that about Stumbleina, that it was basically like the demo version on the record, it again almost like never mind something in the way, and it, like these like songs that are like these like noisy, acoustic have to be so soft that like it's a certain mood that if you don't get it right, you'll keep chasing, and they got it right those times, and they just said, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just put it on the record. Bruce Springsteen does that from time to time. Demo stuff ends up being fleshed out or just being put on because it's the take. This song to me, "In the Arms of Sleep," number one, it's waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
1, 2,
yeah.
3, 1, 2, 3. So it's,
The skills of Jimmy Chamberlain.
yeah, so you get another interesting wrinkle this far into the record. It also, the guitars and stuff really feel like REM to me. But the brush
Yeah.
in the acoustic guitar stuff, there's an element of like mid-90s REM to me.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, there's the New Adventures in Hi-Fi era, which was recorded live.
That was what, 94? Or was that 95?
That would have been like 95, 96. That would have been post-Monster.
Yeah, this song would have been one I would have skipped as a kid too.
Yeah.
I would have like kind of just been like, well, we know it comes next. Why would I say we know? But what comes next is, as a kid getting used to like what songs I would be skipping, and you're like, this isn't the next song.
Yeah, this song has the unfortunate placing of being before this song.
Well, again, I think I may have said that before in other places of this album, but as I haven't been skipping as I've listened to it in this like revisit, and I feel like in going through it, like, and really trying to immerse myself into it, it feels like this song really does glue the previous song to the 1979, where like if you went from 33 to 1979, it'd feel a little jilting maybe.
Yeah. I get that.
Which it's interesting because I mean sonically 33, all 33 in the Arms of Sleep in 1979. All three of these are like different sounds.
We're not bringing the rock
different,
guitars.
Different drum, scenarios going on.
Yeah.
Production, different techniques in production. Just like sonically, three different songs.
Yep.
And as I've re-listened to it several times, I'm like, that song is a nice little. Like, it rubs you on the shoulders for, like, here comes the nostalgia.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's a perfect primer.
So, track 5, 1979, starts off with this weird little, like electro beat thing, and every time I hear it, I always like, it just like makes me think like it doesn't count in a way where it feels like it starts on the one of like the way that loop was happening. Like it's like another thing where it sounds wrong in a way when you hyper focus on it, and you're like, I just feel like these aren't accidents. This is all intentional, and production styles like that inspire me to like try not to be like so predictable with even rhythmic elements where like you'd feel like, oh, it's got to come in on the one after a loop or something, where it almost makes your brain find it more interesting when it breaks what you'd expect it to do. 1979, there's a lot to talk about with this one. Probably the most notes I have for any of the songs.
Yeah. But I mean, nothing, I mean, it's the second single, the last song written.
This is the second single. This is the debut of Shaved Head Corgan.
Yeah.
So this is like kind of late into this whole album, but this was the second single, and this is also going like, he's sitting in the back seat of the car for certain clips in the video, and he's got the shaved head. And it's not a very gloomy or dark kind of video. It feels like the vibe it's capturing, which is like, I don't know. I mean, the song is 1979, so I suppose that's kind of the era that's trying to show. And it feels like that 70s show with coloring and stuff like that. He's almost kind of smiling in parts of
No, he's having a good time. Which is sort of the idea. I've interpreted that, like, Billy Corgan in the video is modern.
Yeah.
He's in the back of the car looking back.
Yeah.
So, and he's smiling because this is the way that it was.
Yeah.
You know, that the world is now a vampire and it's bad. But in 1979, when I'm 11, 12 years old, he would have been 12 or whatever at that.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, the same distance that it would have been when this came out. I'm 12 years old. This comes out in 96. Technically, I'm 12 years old. It comes out right before my 12th birthday.
Yeah,
literally.
It plays on nostalgia in really weird ways because it's like, you know, being at that age, you're watching these kids that are a few years almost looking older than you, but they're still like teenagers. But like it's almost still a little head like these are kids old enough to be driving a car or whatever. They're like on like high school parties or something where they're drinking and there's like a live band. And at that age, I wasn't doing any of that stuff yet.
No.
Yeah, for me, and it was like...
I was bothering the convenience store worker. That was the part that was the most relatable. Me and my friends were bothering late-night convenience store workers. But we weren't at a house party, toilet papering, swimming pools. Triumphant... Well, me and my friends definitely were triumphantly giving the middle finger to our hometown. That was also relatable.
it was just interesting how it made me feel like I could relate even though I never had those experiences.
That's the beauty of it.
And now even as an adult, it charms nostalgia because now it makes me think about when I was at that age and that time in my life.
It's like twofold.
Yeah. It really just does a great job at capital N nostalgia. So this album has a drum loop in it that Jimmy Chamberlin plays over top of. So there's a lot of cool production aspects to this song that I like a lot, including the where that's actually like a loop. That's a sample where Billy Corgan's voice, they recorded it, processed it, and then laid it over top of the drum loop through the song. And you've got just a lot of elements to that song that are just interesting. The drums are pretty simple, and when you listen to it, it really doesn't go all different kinds of places. It just does these different sort of effects to it, where it's like half distorted or overcompressed, and it's pretty inspiring to me about how I could like potentially make a song from certain elements, you know, in loops especially, and it be a song that.
It's like timeless.
Yeah, that song is like...
An actual timeless song.
Probably one of their most well-known and, you know, popular songs. Track 6.
I'm going to keep talking for a second on 1979.
Okay.
Tales of a Scorched Earth, I have very little to say other than the fact that it earns its title.
Yeah.
The name and the music match Scorched Earth.
Yeah, very heavy, very. It's almost muddy.
Yeah, yeah. I said it's in the red.
Yeah.
There's the snotty Billy Corgan song. Like I said, he's got a couple different modes, and this is the zero. Like this is cleanliness is godliness, snottiness, right? That's what I get from this. What I was going to say back on 1979, some thoughts. The video was directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris, who directed a bunch of music videos in the 90s, but had worked with them on Rocket.
Oh, okay.
So they had worked together doing sort of fun videos.
It's the follow-up to where the kids went.
Yeah, they went to a different planet, and it was the 70s on that planet. Yeah. 242 million YouTube video views on 1979. Won the MTV Music Video Award for Video of the Year. I had a couple other thoughts here.
I watched a video just the other day of the making of that video, 1979, and interesting to say the least.
They left the party footage on top of a car and it was destroyed.
I didn't pick up that.
They had filmed that twice. They had filmed it already, left it on top of a car, and it was literally destroyed, and they had to refilm some of that. So they had to go back and do it. And then in the perfect video, somebody leaves something on the back of their car.
Yeah, cassette tape.
Yes, as a reference to them screwing up on the 1979 video. It's like a direct reference to that.
The house party in the 1979 music video too, apparently the way they were capturing it, the band was kind of just improvising and kind of jamming, and everyone was just kind of they were just kind of hanging out and just listening, oh, we came here because we were told that we're going to be in a music video for the Smashing Pumpkins, and as if they don't recognize anything that they're playing, but then when they started playing their hits, that's when everyone was getting into it, and that's how it was almost the energy changed once Billy or the band actually was playing real Smashing Pumpkins known songs.
It'd be interesting if they were lip syncing to Today, because I had to play Today so that people would react to it, and then they just cut the audio out and just cut that together as a house party.
Well, it feels at some point you're seeing them they're performing the song the way that there's syncopation with body movements. Also,
again, there's a part of me that the world had Disarm already. We already heard the Smashing Pumpkins sing acoustic songs. You know what I mean? They weren't just Bullet with Butterfly Wings. They really, Billy Corgan's one of the rock's great sensitive rock boys. You know what I mean? So by the time we got to 1979, it shouldn't have caught us off guard. Here's my 1979 thought. Who is Justine? She's hanging out with the freaks and ghouls. He directly references a name in that song. It kind of takes place in this, it's in my opinion, his best lyrics. I think 1979 is his best lyrics. I think that is the lyrics of it, the use of zipper blues and stuff. He paints pictures.
1979, not 1979. Playing with your syllables, and it still makes sense, and it's makes your brain go wait, what? He doesn't say it the way you would. It's you think it'd be said, it almost makes you realize you're wow, the way you can play with writing lyrics and it not being so straightforward there's an art to it, and I think it pays off when you hear those kinds of examples, because it's just cooler to hear it kind of different than what you'd expect.
It's also nice because it's a song where you get Billy Corgan, man that takes himself very seriously, very serious. William Patrick Corgan takes himself very seriously, right? But in that song, he also confesses that he doesn't care, which is part of the song that is so nice, is that I don't even care. It's the chorus line is that this guy that takes himself so seriously also is able to just brush it off and move about onto the next thing. Is part of that song that I also really just appreciate. It's just he'll let his guard down. He takes himself everything is so precise and so purposeful, and then he'll have a lyric where he just also reveals that it is a character, that he is just zero now or whatever, right? This song to me, Through the Eyes of Ruby.
Yeah, track 7, Through the Eyes of Ruby. Yeah, I've got some notes on this one.
It feels like a divorce song.
Yeah, this one does has elements where it's sort of is about, the lyrics are about the soon to be ex-wife
Chris Fabian.
This song is the other example where the intro to the album, the instrumental, is reprised in the album, where the end of this song has a little piece to it that's like a different key, but it's the same, I guess, like musical elements as that intro
as
song.
The Mellon Collie?
Yeah. Yeah, and also this song is noted to have a ridiculous amount of guitar overdubs to it. I read one place it said 70 guitar tracks, and then I read another part where it was a little bit more of like a story about how while Billy Corgan was focusing on some other songs of the album, the other bandmates were kind of left to add to this song, and over a duration of time really didn't come up with much. And as the album was kind of approaching the end of production, he kind of was like, well, you know, you guys didn't add anything extra to finish that song up. And so then he comes in and lays down like 54 guitar parts in 4 hours to kind of show like a little bit of, kind of like as a, like, hey, you guys couldn't figure anything out. Like here we go. Like, well, let me show you what. There's some things we could do to this song still.
Cool.
You know, and saying all that, and also we've been talking over top of it. I don't know if I really distinctively think of any of the parts in the song of having that many guitar parts.
Yeah, I don't hear 70 guitars. I don't hear the point of. I hear a waste of time if I hear 70 guitars have been recorded to this. I don't even like, this song's fine. I like the songs where Billy Corgan wears the Black Sabbath fan on his sleeve, where he really is like just fuzzed out riff. I have a riff. It's, you know, just these couple of notey things, and I have this riff, and I'll just kind of like snarl around it. I always kind of like that. This one is, I don't know what it is about it, that it just, it should be right there with, maybe the length. It is almost 8 minutes.
Oh, it's another long one.
Yeah, it's another one of the long ones. It feels like on paper it should be right there with Jellybelly and Muzzle for me. It's got like the elements of the fuzzed out guitar and the na-na-na-na-na melody line that you remember even if you don't remember the words.
The intro of the song has like a phaser effect.
Yeah,
and
which feels vintagey to me.
To me, I wrote in my notes, it made me think about Incubus. Like it almost starts off, it reminds me of like, this feels like I'm listening to Incubus, and then, you know, I feel like as the song progresses, I drop that impression. I'm like, oh, we're listening to the Pumpkins. This is also one I would have skipped, I think, as a kid too.
Probably just based on length, probably. I probably would have listened to it and got the vibe and been like, oh, okay, yeah, got the guitars, blah, 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 blah. What's the next song? Especially because I've always liked Stumbleine.
Yeah, Stumbleine's the next track, track 8.
Which I think is my favorite of the like late, I think it was the reason I listened to the album all the way through. That's the reason I listened to Mellon Collie from beginning to end, was I knew that Stumbleine was like buried there later on the record. Because they give you a bunch of like softer songs up here.
I'm gonna check. So right now the song's, okay, still recording over 2 hours right now. Okay, that's all good. Everything seems to be good.
Yeah, red light's been red lighting.
Fuck yeah. All right.
I've had all the cat's attention the whole time.
In this wide shot, there's probably plenty of just like tail whipping and all that. And I feel like if you close your eyes, you'd be like you're at a live concert. They're getting like kind of like the jam part.
Yeah, there's another one that's probably another long song that I bet was built in the studio around jamming. Again, Billy Corgan being the ego control freak that he is, probably was, you know, as you were saying, delegating work. And then also, like, being encouraged to, like, why don't you play nice with your bandmates? Why don't you get in there and write some songs together?
So 7-minute mark, it almost sounds like another song has started, but this is actually just the end of this Through the Eyes of Ruby.
Yeah.
This is the part that is apparently just a different key, but a reprise of the intro, Mellon Collie song. Yeah, and it's so brief too.
Interesting.
It really just like it's so weird to even think about that being like, got to put this in here, like the decision making on that, you know, like very inspiring how you put these elements together, and I think it worked. So yeah, track 8 we're on now, Stumbleine. This was not one that I skipped as a kid. I definitely liked this one.
Yeah,
I definitely was like, oh yeah. And it's the guitar. This is the song that was recorded as a demo and then ended up making the cut for the final album as a demo. And yeah, the lyrics to me just seemed like whatever bits and pieces I pick up, it had a very bleak and sort of sad vibe. And I kind of, in re-listening to this, wrote the notes, it's almost like a nursery, it has like this nursery rhyme feel, but like it also reminds me of Requiem for a Dream, and the dark, like this like darkness to it.
Yeah.
Like these sad stories about
I mean,
people.
it had to, like, as a kid, I always picked up on the word stirrups.
Yeah, stirrups, you think about, like
I think of, like,
legs, the...
lady doctors.
Yeah. Shaking
and
out the loose teeth.
And like Stumbleine, have the "een" giving it a feminine quality.
Yeah.
It just like painted a picture that was probably like something that I knew that I probably wouldn't understand.
I think of you every time I hear the shaking out the loose teeth thing. For some reason, I just like correlate, you know, teeth. Where I'm like, that Kevin probably hears that lyric too. You had summer teeth.
Yeah,
And so I just feel like that put it in my mind that words that involve talking about teeth.
It's my biggest, like, I'm a dentist fearing guy, so it's. I just have I've got like disarm vibes written. I've got, you know, that I'm glad that it's close to the end of the record here to give you that train stop this far into the record. Especially because it's going to be butted up against my least favorite song on a couple of them.
X.Y.U is up next.
X.Y.U I have little thoughts on, but
I have I got like half a page on that one.
We Only Come Out at Night and Beautiful I have.
The guitar on this, when I found out it was a demo, it made sense, but to me when I hear it reminds me of my acoustic guitar with the built-in mic.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it sounds like you just like, oh, we'll just plug into it instead of getting a microphone out, because it's got this amp thing built into it, so we'll just use that. And it has a particular like sound to it. And when I hear that sort of the way the notes buzz out sometimes, and like it reminds me of that.
It almost sounds like it could be like a plastic back ovation guitar or something. It's got kind of almost the cheapness.
Yeah.
It's not a full acoustic guitar bodied sound.
Not the sound you would think of a real thoughtful acoustic guitar recorded in a studio would sound like, which didn't really hit me until I read that detail where it was the demo, and it kind of blew my mind. I was like, that's why it sounds so raw. All right, so now we're on track 9, which is X.Y.U.
X.Y.U.
Back now, this one's like juxtaposed to the last song. We're rocking out on this one.
I think this is it too. I think this is like them announcing this is the end of the guitar, right?
Yeah, because the rest of the album, is...
This is like the electric guitar's last hurrah on this record is these... And it's a similar guitar to the Porcelina epic, the stabby, stabby guitar thing. But there's the kick, the Jimmy Chamberlain drum just pushing. It's again in with the zero and the snotty rock, the Billy Corgan snotty rock.
Yeah, well, the vocals in this, there's a couple different points of notes where it was like there's a yell at some point where he sounds like a rooster, and then it has a dropout point where he screams and has like very distinctive lyrics. But then, yeah, the lyrics in this one, you hear the name Mary, but the lyric Mary's got some deep shit. When like re-listening to this, there was like certain points where like these lyrics sound kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't want to make a criticism that's like would be insulting, but when you hear like Mary's got some deep shit.
I mean, I think he says rat-tat-tat-tat at one point in the song.
It just feels like almost like they're not. This isn't Billy Corgan.
Yeah.
These lyrics are too like.
This is zero.
Yeah, this is very like. I don't know. Because there was.
He's writing from a different point of view here. He's not writing about the beautiful boy anymore.
There was like other parts, in other songs where the lyrics almost made me laugh listening to it because I pictured me as like a young teenager walking around with like headphones on, like emptiness is
that's what I'm trying, when I say snotty.
Sadness and madness.
Yes, when I say snotty, that's what I'm trying to invoke, is that Billy Corgan has this like cringy snottiness that he gets away with. That is like, when he does the snarl and pushes whatever kind of corny lyrics through his nose, we still buy it.
Yeah.
But nobody else really gets away with that. He gets away with that.
If you use those words, you'd feel like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he, and not to say that he, like I said, he's completely capable of everything else, of writing the most beautiful, profound lyrics and stuff too. But he also, Billy Corgan can be like a shithead, and he knows it. He's very aware of it. And he leans into it, and when he has the cleanliness is godliness, and this song and stuff is him, and the zero is him. But then at the same time, he will brush it all away by saying that he doesn't even care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the dichotomy, the duplicitness of the duplicity of one Billy Corgan. Again, he was a grown man going by Billy.
Yeah. It's a distinctive thing to be.
Who now likes to be called William Patrick Corgan. Is a part of it.
How many years of being called Billy when you're in like an aged man where
he put out a solo album under the name William Patrick Corgan. Like, this is, I'm not Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan was the dude that was in the Smashing Pumpkins for the first couple of records. And he doesn't exist anymore.
Those chapters are in the past.
He's now like kayfabe. He's now in his pro wrestling era.
Kayfabe?
Yeah, he's now zero. He's now bald Billy Corgan. He can't grow his hair out ever again. Like, people know him as bald Billy Corgan. He had a music video where he had gained some weight recently, and like the comments, somebody called him Belly Corgan, and like dude just like lost a bunch of weight. Like takes that stuff, like the visual aspect is so important to him on that level.
Belly Corgan.
True story.
Everyone's so mean.
I know. And they're mean to the sensitive rock boy. And that's why he gets angry, and that's why he writes these songs. And that's why we have X.Y.U.
Yeah,
which I can't see without thinking of YYZ, the Rush song.
That sound there, he sounds like a demon.
Yeah.
Like that growl, like that sounds like there's like an effect, a pitch shifter on there where he sounds like the devil or something.
That's the same guy that just did 6 songs earlier was talking about how he doesn't care.
Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
That was the thing I wrote too. This makes me I feel like I'm listening to Black Sabbath right now with the way it just gets into this guitar. Another note, XYZ, as for the title, the alphabet usually ends with Z, of course. In the narrator's Twisted World, however, it all ends with U. X.Y.U. X.Y.U. stands as one of the heaviest Pumpkin tracks, and apparently it's a fan favorite at concerts and has been played live almost 300 times, often as an encore.
Yeah, you don't want to play after this.
Yeah, interesting. You wouldn't play Stumbleine after this one.
Yeah, and he's over it. Plus, you can just kind of like bash it out for a little while here.
Yeah. Getting some solos, you know, everyone's a little
You can just be kind of chaotic. Yeah, I always just think of YYZ and Rush.
Is YYZ a hit of theirs? Or is that just an album cut that just...
Yeah, it's an instrumental, but YYZ by Rush is like the song where it's like if you're a musician, you learn YYZ.
Oh.
It's like the guitar, the bass, and the drums are all like pro level. So it's like one of those songs where it's like, oh, I can impress my friends by saying I know how to play YYZ on any of the instruments. If you figured it out on any of them, then you're a virtuoso. It's like that song.
A song that like seasoned veterans, while the band's getting set up and warmed up, one of them might be jamming on that one.
Yeah,
or
you'll
something.
hear like one of the little, it's almost like a classical music piece in that it has like phrases and stuff that you're like, oh, that's the beginning. The Primus album, it starts live and you just hear the bell ding, 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 and then it cuts away real fast. That's the beginning of him playing YYZ. That bell is the beginning of YYZ. So on that beginning of that Primus record, he's about to play a Rush song.
Oh.
Yeah. We only come out at night.
Yeah, this one I
Track
have.
10.
I've got a little story on that one. The last song though, that song was recorded live. That was like that version was like they didn't track it and all that. That was a live version, so that happened as a band live all at once, and they did a couple warm-ups of it, and then when it was being captured, Alan Moulder was like projecting out to the band like, please don't mess up, because of like how good everything was working out with just like, it seemed like a relatable little note that I read where like when something's happening like that and if you're recording it, you're like, gosh, I hope nothing goes wrong right now, because this is like the best take.
Yeah.
So anyway, on track 10, we only come out at night. This is one I liked as a kid, and it has a weird sound to it. Like when I listen to it, I'm still like, what is this sound? Like, is this like a drum machine? It sounds like frogs burping, and then you get this weird instrument, which is a zither, like that ring.
Yeah.
There's a story on that, but for me, this is one I listened to when I had the album fresh as a kid. But then as the album faded and years moved on, we're talking like we've gotten to like the mid-aughts where it's like 2005 or 6, and I was at I was up at a cabin up in the middle of Pennsylvania with some friends, and one person put on the radio through their iPod this song. Like, it wasn't like that whole album was playing. It was like people just put
you have one chance to play a song and you played We Only Come Out at Night?
Yeah, so this came on, I was like, whoa, this is a cool song. I remember liking this song, and I just thought it was so rad because I was like, someone else likes this song, because it wasn't a radio hit. It wasn't something where I remember talking about this with other people. It was like buried on the second disc of this album, and it was just like a song I always came back to, like the melody to it, and the instrumentation or whatever, like that instrument which I just recently discovered is called a zither.
Yeah.
Where apparently Billy Corgan like bought it, and like the bandmates are kind of like teasing him, like, yeah, you're really gonna use that. And then like that same night, after being teased, he wrote this song, and it's like, look, like,
no, there's no
prove
more
you wrong.
No more powerful man smitten than Billy Corgan. You can't do it.
I want to come up with
challenge him.
A Dungeons and Dragons song for you.
I skipped this one as a kid. To me, We Only Come Out at Night was a weird lullaby.
Yeah.
I actually wrote down, I refer to it as Nosferatu lullaby.
There you go.
That's what it feels like to me. Because it's We Only Come Out at Night. Even when he's like writing a song that feels like a kid's song, it was still like, he's still got to be a ghoul, right? He's still got to be ghoulish about it, and this weird new goth thing that he's doing. It reminds me, not to go back to this, but there's an REM element to me of shiny, happy people, of like kind of a silly song on a record, because it feels silly.
Yeah.
And kid song, they have a song,
there's a little bit of a gang vocal. I don't know if that's just him or not, but there's like this sing-along thing where...
It feels very... There's the piano back. There's weird...
Oh, yeah. Blam, blam,
I skipped this one a lot as a kid. Again, it just felt kind of like a weird like lullaby. To me now, listening to it, that song is White Album influence. That is like he hears Rocky Raccoon, and he hears Piggies, and he hears Why Don't We Do It in the Road. He hears the stuff that's like You can be weird on your big concept record. You can have like a weird song peppered in there that just gives like another like point.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we went goth, and we went electronica, and we went straight alternative. We even have a slightly country tinged. Here's like our like element of like silly, or like, again, like
Why
like
the
a
hell
lullaby.
not? The Beatles did it.
Yeah,
They got
yeah.
weird. They got all kinds of abstract stuff compared to the other songs. So.
Yeah, so why can't I do it?
Yeah.
That's how I interpret We Only Come Out at Night now. To me, is like, oh, this is another flavor on the record where Billy Corgan was trying to give you a bunch of different flavors. And this one was the like, hey, why don't we do like a weird thing that's just hand percussion instead of a full drum? That's something new. And why don't we do like a new instrument and
Yeah.
like a song that is like, I don't want to waste a song. You can't have 33 for me to go whing, whing. You can't have that one. But you can have we only come out and you can have that.
Boom, boom, boom.
And then you get to the elements. You're like, okay, yeah, throw that in there right before beautiful.
Yeah, so now we're on track, we're a minute and 20 some seconds into the track Beautiful, track 11. Yeah, also this feels like, I had here, it reminds me of, it's like a different vibe from a lot of the other stuff on the album, and it reminded me of like mid-90s Britpop or something.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, later learning that like the producers, Alan Moulder and Flood, are both over the pond.
Yeah, as
that
British as they come.
You'd be like, oh, I can see how that was brought into the
Yeah,
mix.
you know what? It's funny you say the Britpop thing, and now I hear like some weird Blur elements.
Like right here.
Yeah.
When it comes in this part, you're going like, yeah, Blur.
Yeah, you know what? I never, but now that you say it, now I hear. And this is a song that I also skipped. I actually would skip these last, I would listen to the last song on the record because I actually really like the last song.
Yeah.
But this one would get skipped to me because A, it's called Beautiful. And that already like disqualified it to me because I was like,
it's too generic for the Pumpkins.
Yeah, there was an element of like, man, you've given me silver fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you've given me song titles that I have to chew on, that I have to like figure out what like your weird poetry is. You challenge me with this stuff. You've challenged me every other place. You've invented names. You've invented words. You've used candy cane in a rock song. You know what I mean? And then you give me Beautiful, and then you give me this like it's, to me, Billy Corgan filtering or channeling Black Sabbath comes naturally to him. But him channeling the Beatles doesn't to me. And he loves the Beatles, but I feel like he isn't that. He likes pro wrestling and baseball. He likes sports. He should like the muscle of Black Sabbath. That sometimes when he goes into the delicateness of a song called Beautiful, I just think that maybe we're just left of center. You couldn't give me another weird, obscure island name to call it?
There's a few songs on this album that feel like they could have been in like a little single package. You know, like 3 songs. Like there's like at least, because there's like 2 or 3 other songs I feel like this kind of vibes with, where they're very like like soft and like peaceful and like dreamlike, where they could have been like a whole nother little like chunk of something else, aesthetics and vibe wise. But for them to be mixed in with this album, they definitely maybe help the album not be such a downer a whole lot of times too, where you have like something like that where it's like, I think that's a happy song. I mean, it's called Beautiful, and then the key of it or where it just feels like it's not negative.
Yeah.
Next track 12 we're on. Lily, My One and Only.
My One and Only.
This one, to me, kicks off and feels like it's like Wilco or Ween.
Yeah.
It's the kind of vibes I hear when I think it's another song where it's like, this doesn't even feel like I'm listening to the Pumpkins anymore.
To me, this song starts with a feeling of not being genuine. I think that's the first time you hear a kick drum sound like a country kick drum.
Yeah, it is kind of like
thunk,
a boom.
Thunk, thunk, instead of the clicky Jimmy Chamberlain thing. We get this saloon piano.
Yeah.
There just comes an element of like, okay, we're playing the characters again here, and we're coming up with another flavor. Now we've got this saloony country flavor later on in the record. It's fine. I don't dislike it, but it rubs me the wrong way when it first starts. I have to like give it kind of a chance. Once I get into it, and it's just doing the Ringo.
That little like organ thing. Or...
Yeah, that part's fine. But the way that it starts, right after we hear a song that has like the electronic tinged drums, when we hear that real live, raw there.
Yeah.
It's like the only time on the album the drums
It's like
sounds
a
like it's in a
marching
room.
band,
Yeah.
like kind of drum.
Yeah, it's the only time where it sounds like the drums are in a room with somebody. Or
This-
they were recorded using only the room mics. It almost sounds like there's no upfront.
Yeah,
It just
the way it rings
Yeah.
in that space. I just saw my mom pull up. Yeah, this song, like you said, once it gets going, you kind of like are in it then. But there's an officer knocking at my door. That lyric. By the time you've gotten in settled with being like, I'm in this song, all right, I like it. You know, it's all right. You hear that lyric, and you're like, wait a second, what's this song about?
yeah, what's he talking about?
And
what trouble is Lily in?
Yeah, and then like looking it up and reading about it, it's kind of just has this element of like voyeurism
Yeah.
and kind of like a silly song in a way.
Yep. Right after Beautiful, so it's like a 1-2 punch of me going like, we need to bring the guitars back. Where are the guitars?
Did the song start? Are we on Still Lily? No, we.
No, we're on By Starlight.
Oh, okay. I don't know. When it comes to editing this, I don't know. I might like clip that part out where I left and had to talk with my mom because she's probably clear as day in the microphones.
Probably.
Put like a little caption at the bottom there, like.
Maybe just do like a fast forward.
Yeah.
Where you just see me playing on my phone for half a second. Just like we were discussing the hurricane real quick.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, I was about to go into it with you, but I was like, I don't want to like make too many edit.
Nah, let's keep going because we're right here at the bitter end.
Yeah. So track 13 we're on, which is By Starlight, and real kind of like has this flow to it. This one, the phrase "dead eyes" gets
Dead
driven
Eyes.
in pretty good, and I like it. I like. If you hung out for the album, this experience this long, you're going like, this is a nice gift of like melody. And,
This is the better version of this song to me. The slower ballad thing that he does a couple times on this record. I think this is the best version of it. It has a fade in.
Yeah.
Different. Again, it's like
the fade in, where that's another production technique where you're just going like,
a different.
we're getting a fade in.
We're 27 songs into this record and you're giving me something I haven't heard before.
And
then a fade
Dead
out.
Eyes, another song about a marriage not doing too good.
Yeah.
And most of the notes I had were just on that aspect of the of that element of the failing marriage. There was a phrase here I thought was a really interesting way of describing the drums on that song, which was gravity repellent percussion.
Interesting.
Yeah, which now that the song's passed, it's probably
Now I had to
hard
like
hear it.
hear that again.
But when listening to it and reading that, it was like, oh, the way that the drums have this sort of like, almost like you're playing them on the moon or something. All right, we're at the end of the album, track 14, Farewell and Goodnight. I've got a couple little bits and pieces here, but this is, we've made it to the end, and the album is ending with a, overall, I'd say it's a pleasant song because of the fact that all the members come together on this with singing. It's got that sort of, like so many other songs here, it sort of has a sleepy kind of vibe to it. and a couple lyrics can stand out at different points, and hearing the different voices stand out. And I think this says it was written solely by Iha. BMI, according to the BMI database. And this song is also this is also a reprisal of the intro.
The end part.
Yeah.
Has the beginning part again, but it played on a piano this time, so it's like more recognizable. Everyone sings. The only time ever Jimmy Chamberlin's voice is on a Smashing Pumpkins recording ever.
Yeah.
The only time he does it. And it was only doing half verses with Darcy. He doesn't even get his own full verse. They trade off.
Apparently he was all stoked about doing it, Jimmy Chamberlain, but then when he actually got on the mic, was a little bit more like...
oh yeah, you still have to sing.
Yeah.
It's good in theory. This is, I like this version of the lullaby. Like this one, they get the lullaby thing right to me, where they don't get it as right on the other one to me. I think it's Brushes.
You mean the last song of the first disc? To get it right on the other one?
No, just when they write a lullaby type song.
Gotcha.
When they write a song that's the sleepy nighttime song. This is one of the better ones. And I think that my favorite detail to it is the brushes that sound like waves.
Yeah, that's an element that's it's subtle in there, but when you listen to it, it's not just a normal brush. It has a very
No, it comes and goes
tides.
like a wave. Yeah. Right there. Yeah, it feels like they're coming. It feels like a journey. It feels like the end of a journey. We're back at the beach. We're back where we started. We went on this whole adventure through the stars and the beach. We went on we didn't even talk about the Tonight Tonight video, also directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris, who also did the 1979 video. There it is.
There's the piano.
Yeah. He slips into it, though, here. Because right here, it's still the piece of the farewell and goodnight. There. Ding, 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 ding. So we just reprise, finally.
Well, by making it through to this point now, if you've listened to it in the context of disc 1, disc 2, the way that ends is just definitely feels just right.
Yep, it's a satisfying ending. You got to nail the landing on this, and they nail it, letting everybody sing. Again, they didn't know this. How could they know this? That was the last time. The 4 of them.
Yeah.
So the last time that you hear the 4 Smashing Pumpkins of that era, the classic lineup and blah, 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 is them all 4 for the only time singing together at the end of their statement, their definitive musical statement. So it is this nice little cap on the end. It also sort of sometimes feels, like I said, like a eulogy. It kind of feels like a grave, a tombstone to me sometimes, because it feels like, again, we're talking middle of the 90s. We're talking things are changing. Things won't be the same.
Oops.
Oh, was that for the very... Oh, you know what? Probably still pick it up, though.
Yeah, because I also have room mics happening, too.
It's such a middle. You know what I mean? It's such a medium. It's such a median. It's such a... It's 14 and 14, right?
Yeah, that was another detail I didn't saw and I thought about. Didn't say it at the time when it crossed my mind. But I was like, yeah, both discs and have total 14 tracks.
Yeah, so we got 14 and 14. We get the book. We get the 2 disc. We get day, night. Everything is just divisible in half. But it's also like Gish and Siamese Dream is here, and then Adore and Machina and Tarantula music or whatever, wherever we go from here is on this half. And it's 1995. We're right in the middle of a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like this beautiful, like, middle, and we're right between, I have hair, and now I'm bald on either side of this record. Or we're a 4-piece and we're a 3-piece on the other side of this record. Or we're nature kids singing about divorce and abortion and personal things. And then I'm here and I'm talking about oceans and characters and making up these, you know, like they went into it here and came out this other side, a different band, for better and for worse.
Yeah, after this is Adore, and then that's the last '90s album, because then the next album is 2000. That's like the Machina, and that's when it's like I feel like he's like, I'm not super. Well, I don't know all the details, but I just picture him with like a long black
the cloak
and like the
where he still hangs, where he's still kind of there. Like I said, he fully goes those characters. He fully embraces that by then, and he's been there ever since. But then the band, you know, by Machina, I think Darcy's out. I think so. I think we're just on 2. I think we start replacing Joey Warnicker or whatever I believe plays drums. Helps. Yeah, so like, you know, the shift. I think that's the thing about this album that is the most fascinating to me, and the thing that I think keeps me coming back to it is that it's a record of such change and turmoil and success, and the only time where you could have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
Can you name another double album from the 90s?
There's not a detail that I saw or remember seeing, but like it's kind of crossed my mind a few times now. Is like, just how much of a budget did this album get?
Yeah.
Like, how much did Virgin give them to produce this because of the duration of
budget.
time, of the way the singles were spanned out, the videos themselves, the
packaging.
The packaging is an investment, you know, and it's like you really gotta believe in the artists to be able to comp that money back. And, you know, back then it just, it seems like how much of a gamble was it? You know, the band had established themselves with prior albums, and I could see that Virgin would have had, reason to believe they're going to make their money back, but how many more examples of something like that did I remember coming through in my life? I mean, it seemed like as time went on, things got more and more minimalist.
Yeah.
You know, even with double disc albums and stuff like that. This was probably like one of the last hurrahs, at least in my catalog of taste, that like something was just so thoughtful with its what was going into making it happen. And, you know, to this day, I'm still in awe with the details.
Yeah.
And listening to it in this new stage and revisiting it.
And it's so good that it's so good that its flaws, it's not, like, to me, it's not perfect. It's not Blue Album, where like every little sonic note is perfect to me, and it's like 10 out of 10 that I would never think about skipping. And with every song I hear is my new favorite. Like, no, this one's my favorite. Oh, no, this one's my favorite. Oh, no, this one's my favorite. Right?
Oh, yeah, this one. I forgot. This one's too, yeah.
This one doesn't do that. This one I go, I still have to listen to Beautiful. I still have to truck through a couple of these. But its batting average is pulled so high by the things that are good. Like 1979 and Tonight, and Bullet with Butterfly Wings. I would say those 3. 0, not as much, and 33, not as much. But those 3 singles are up in the like, oh, they don't belong to you anymore singles. You know, bands, not every band gets that. Rarely do they get that. There are only a couple bands that get to graduate a song into the like, oh, this is Mr. Brightside, where it no longer belongs to the Killers. It's everybody's song, and like they've lost ownership over it because like it took off. Or Don't Stop Believing, where it's like, oh, it's no longer Journey's song, like, or Teen Spirit, or Everybody Hurts. Or like these songs that like, oh, I can no longer even picture these songs being written by a mere human being or collect. They now belong to infinity. They belong to the timeline of life. And the Smashing Pumpkins were fortunate enough on this record to graduate 3 with 1979 Tonight Tonight and Bullet Butterfly Wings into like, oh, these will last longer than the band. They will last longer. They will be on a compilation album. They will be on a movie soundtrack 200 years in the future where people go, oh, I know that song, but I don't know who the band is. You know what I mean?
Like, I believe that though.
It'll reach that level of like
I've been hearing and seeing examples of youth wearing T-shirts, and it's almost like it feels like you wouldn't be wearing that unless you were a fan, but it's like maybe they've gotten to that level where their aesthetics are like more popular than even like who the band really is.
Where it represents a thing more. It's a flag. It represents an era. You know, your Smashing Pumpkin shirt is more than just a Smashing Pumpkin shirt. It's like, oh, I'm from the 80s and the 90s, or I relate to that, kind of like the way that...
It says Zero. I mean, come on, it's cool, right? You know, it's like
I had the Zero
grunge.
shirt. I had a Zero shirt, for sure. They now have... That... How to word it? They're... I tried to like sum it up in like a bigger idea when you're trying to think of like these like big concepts of like they didn't need to do anything after this. Everything, they would have had all the same amount of success. You know what I mean? Like everything that album is and represents, nothing that Belly Corgan could have done after
would have sullied the perfection of this album.
Yeah. Even within its own little things that aren't for me, a couple of the little flavors, and then even then, I understand them as part of the concept. Again, every one of those songs that I don't love, there isn't a song on there where I go, that doesn't belong on there though. There's a note on that album that I think doesn't belong. It all gels together in this one perfect package of font and artwork and music and song titles and the looks of the band members themselves. Nothing. I don't believe that any musical project or any media has ever gotten it so right on every aspect. You know what I mean? Every single like thing is right. Everything in there on this thing to me is a 10 out of 10. Even with some of the goofy songs. Because the batting average is so high from those other ones, and the fact that the songs that I don't love are still good songs, and they are spices to this overall thing, where you have to create something musically pretty special in order to be able to put little soundscapes and other songs that like just kind of act as like your breadcrumbs along this trail. And that's what some of these songs are. That's what Lily is to me, and that's what Ruby is, and that's what Bodies. You know, some of these songs can be these little like, oh, they're not the ones that I like go to when I'm like listening to this album because it's 28 songs long. I gotta pick and choose. I only have so much driving to do. So some of those songs aren't the ones I go to. But when I sit here and listen to it like we just did, where you listen to it all the way through, there wasn't a moment where I was like, why is that on here?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why did Billy Corgan rap?
Or a skit or something.
Yeah. They're like, no. The only album I can come up with that, and I almost feel like it's a sister record to this. The only album I can sort of come up with where like it feels like this and captures this, and the aesthetic matches sort of the songs, which match the vibe of it and stuff, is Aeroplane Over the Sea, the Neutral Milk Hotel.
That image artwork kind of pops in my head a couple times. Had popped in my head a couple times while
With the
talking about
collageness of it.
that, and like the name of the box set that came out shortly after, and an aeroplane.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like, it almost goes like, oh wait, what I'm thinking of here is maybe they were inspired by that, and because those artists came. Well, no.
Similar.
Yeah, similar era, but like it was still kind of post this though, wouldn't it have been? Yeah.
But there's still like an element of like that, like he without knowing. I don't know what Jeff Mangan's up to, but in my brain, there's probably some comparisons to be made to Billy Corgan, maybe, in terms of like who they are. Actually, you know what I thought I had? I'm gonna sidetrack here. A thought that I had about Billy Corgan on the ride up here. I was trying to think about how like he's this singular guy, and he's like both completely misunderstood, but I think everybody's got a pretty good idea who he is too. You know what I mean? Like it's like this weird like thing about Billy Corgan, right? He's Disney adult, but he's zero. He's you know,
owns a wrestling
and a tea house
enterprise and a tea house.
Yeah, like so he's like this guy. I think the best comparison I can come up with in terms of like somebody on his level is Nicolas Cage. I feel like Billy Corgan and Nicolas Cage are these like take their art seriously. When they're good, they're as good as they get. When they're as weird as they get. And they take it seriously even when they're being weird. They take the weird seriously as they take the serious seriously. Right? Where they lean into it, they understand that these things have, you know, that things are bigger picture things, that they have all these elements. So I feel like Nicolas Cage is kind of like an equivalent of like a brethren in my mind of Billy Corgan, of like immensely talented, can turn it on and win the awards and can represent a thing and has so many hits, but also has the things that they do for like their own fun and their own goofy kicks that are confusing to everybody else in the world and make you go, is this person misunderstood? Are they just on their own level? They just spend their money their own way and they just do their own thing, and Billy Corgan wants to write pro wrestling and
it makes sense, I guess, though.
Like
somehow or another it almost seems like, oh yeah, when you read that information, you're like, I forgot about that.
Remember he dated Jessica Simpson.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like he is a guy that contains multitudes, if you will, an interesting enigma of a man who I think, much like anybody that gets sort of like famous for doing a certain thing, especially something so confessional and personal, that once you get the confessional and personal thing out of you, you can kind of float about and do different projects and get your band back together and break up your band and form other bands and release solo albums and keep trying to chase your next artistic thing, and hope that you can come at it from some sort of personal level. So I always feel like, you know, Jimmy Chamberlain was back in 2001. So he took that much of a break from Jimmy Chamberlain. But he invited him into a different band before he invited him back into the Smashing Pumpkins first, because everything is calculated. Now they tour as like a bigger band. I think there was multiple dudes on stage that aren't just the core. The bass player is now Peter Hook's son, the bass player of New Order and Joy Division. His son is now the current bass player. But in order to keep the visual aspect or whatever, there is a lady guitar player that is a current addition, because he needs the feminine touch in the Smashing Pumpkins at all time. The sensitive rock boy.
The vision.
To him, probably, it's easier maybe for him to communicate with women than his own creative men type. Which is why he doesn't have a lot of collaborators.
Yeah, and he held the same band lineup for a very long time, so like an interesting sort of...
And the band name came first. famously, the band name came first. This is a man with a vision. This is a man that isn't just like, oh, let's let it speak to me.
You come up with like a band name and you're just going like, I gotta make a band because this name is too cool not to use and no one else is gonna, I'm the only one that's gotta be able to use this.
But he like hit the ground running.
This.
He named his first album Gish.
Gish.
He like hit the ground running on the idea that words are gonna be important, that titles are gonna be important, that titles don't have to be the chorus, that the title doesn't just have to be wild thing, and the part repeated over and over again, where it can be a word that's like, oh, this word is a certain amount of syllables and it's a certain amount of mouthfeel and it's a certain amount of blah blah, and it already is painting a picture before I get to it. Cobain was good at it too. Cobain will give you a song title and you already are starting to hear the song before you hear the song, right? He is great for that. You see, Farewell and Goodnight could have only sounded like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's no other song.
It wouldn't have been a snotty rock, fast,
There's no other
heavy
song on the album that could have been called Farewell and Goodnight. Let me go back through here and just before we wrap up and go through and make sure there's no additional notes that I have that I'll feel. 7 Grammy nominations, winning for Best Hard Rock Performance, 9 MTV Video noms for this record.
It was the
keyboard player dies while on tour. Jonathan Melvoin.
It was him and Jimmy were partying, and that dude OD'd.
Yeah, and he dies, and then
caused all the drama, and they kick him out. I think I watched an interview where Billy was talking about it, like in a way. I don't like referring to him as Billy, by the way. I feel like I'm talking about him like I know him. I feel like I need to it always feels wrong when I just say Billy. Like,
Billy.
I want to just say, maybe I should just, it's like say Corgan. Corgan, I had an interview where he was talking about like as if like, it was interesting, like the tone of voice about like it was almost like what we did for Jimmy. Like, you know,
yeah.
we did him a favor kicking him out of the band.
I think he was like, I think his point of view for Jimmy Chamberlain being kicked out of the band was if he stayed in the band, he would have also died.
Like, it's almost like too much rock star life or something.
We needed, for him, it was the best move. And there's a part of me that is like not a part of me, that I believe that because they weren't as good without him. And Billy Corgan would have known that. Billy Corgan would have known, like, hey, Jimmy Chamberlain's one of the best, probably the, like, Mount Rushmore 90s drummers. Right? You get Grohl.
Yeah, Beato did an interview with him, so you'd think he'd be notable.
Yeah, no, he's on the like, if you were to make a Mount Rushmore of 90s rock drummers, it's Tool drummer, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Yeah, I couldn't pull it.
Danny, what's his name? Why can't I think of Danny Carey? Whew. Danny Carey, drummer of Tool. You probably get Dave Grohl. You probably get Jimmy Chamberlain, and you probably get God. That might those 3 guys. Those are like the 3 alternative rock like drummers. You talk to any '90s kid that plays drums.
Oh, what about Travis Barker?
Yeah, maybe, but he's a little later. I'd still like count him as like the late '90s, like the radio rock drummers of that era that would have inspired every grunge kid to play drums. Yeah. It would have been Jimmy Chamberlain. It would have been Grohl. It would have been Danny Carey. I feel like I'm missing like one more of like a big 4 of like alt rock drummers.
They're going to, they're going to say in the comments below the drummer you think Kevin's forgetting right now. I'm interested in knowing what you guys think. So comment down below.
Like and subscribe. Hit the bell. Matt, what's his name? He was in Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. Blanking on all the names right now.
I mean, your brain just did a lot there we
just digested the
Yeah,
entirety
went
of
through
the
it all.
best-selling double album of the '90s, of the decade.
I believe that. I didn't have that note in mind, but that makes sense from all the other general statistics. It seemed to be like this was.
The only one I could think of that would even compete would be the Use Your Illusion. Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, and then
Remember they did 1 and 2?
the other double LP I've been listening to lately is The Fragile, which I feel like is early 2000s or 2000.
Yeah, maybe 2000.
Well, I really gotta go to the bathroom. The only other thing I want to say about that, which is just sort of like, I feel like I'm stepping back a couple points, but I just wanted to say is that with the hits on this album, that's interesting that compared to the other hits of the 90s, how like a lot of those I'm just like, don't want to hear anymore. I don't feel that way about any of the radio hits on this. Like all the songs that have been radio friendly still to this day, like I still haven't burned out on them. Like the way like Smells Like Teen Spirit is like the least listened to track if I listen to the album that's on. Where with this, it's like I don't mind hearing Tonight or 1979 for the umpteenth millionth time.
I'm the same.
So I don't know.
feel like I've got a closer relationship with like Pearl Jam, but like I don't want to hear Black.
Or Jeremy.
Yeah, don't play Black or Oceans for me right now, or like a song that I've like. But I could hear any of the 10 best songs on this record at any time and be perfectly happy. Matter of fact, I'll play Muzzle twice in a row.
Yeah, that's the one I do definitely like skip backwards on.
Yeah. Or I'll go deep dive on the bonus tracks and listen to the strings-free version. Or the only strings version. There's a version that's just the strings.
Yeah.
And that's just as good.
I think I was eating dinner one night and I went on Spotify and played, I just clicked on it and it played that version. It was like, all this good like dinner eating music, and then it carries on with other stuff and it was like kind of changed vibes. But yeah, I don't know, that was like one. Was that one that the remaster, like with all the stuff that was like bonus tracks or something?
2012 remaster.
Yeah, there's like an extra disc, I think, or something like that.
Including some demos and stuff that are on some of the expanded stuff's all pretty good, but it's a lot.
Well, I probably won't have enough hard drive space for my computer, external hard drive, to do this project because I sure as shit know that I'm going to be over 100 gigabytes. I guarantee you on data. On store the material for these all these cameras put together. So holy shit! Thank you very much if you've been watching and have gotten to this point in this. I don't know. It's definitely over 2 hours. I don't know if it broke 3, but I'm gonna have a lot of fun editing this. And again, thank you for your time and attention. And go out and listen to this album. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, I gotta pee. So did you want to do the everything that's 3 hours, 9 minutes. Did you want to do the what were we calling it? The draft? I feel like that would be a lot quicker to execute. That'd probably be like a couple minute long video, which